Hey guys, tonight we're slipping quietly behind the timber walls of a medieval brothel to follow one day, just one, in the life of a woman whose story rarely makes the textbooks. She's not a queen, not a noblewoman, not even a nun writing apocalyptic poetry in a tower. She's a prostitute, living in the belly of the city, where alleyways reek of old wine and worse secrets. And here's the truth. You probably won't survive this. Between the disease, the violence, the stigma, and the thrillingly unstable economics of medieval sex work, this life is a tightrope walk over filth and fire. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And tell me where you're watching from and what time it is. I love knowing where you are in the world when we travel back together like this. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your day begins well before the bells of morning mass toll across the city. There's no sun yet, just the cold breath of dawn sliding in through the warped shutters. You're awake before it touches the wall. The straw mattress beneath you crackles when you shift. You feel the usual ache in your hips and thighs. You slept crooked again. Someone was shouting in the street past midnight, and a cat clawed at your window an hour after that. It's always something. You reach beneath the mattress and pull out the small pouch where you keep your coins. 3 silver pennies, 5 copper ones, and a polished ring that may or may not be glass. Not bad considering how drunk your last client was. You tuck the pouch back into its hiding place. You don't trust the lock on your trunk, and you sure as hell don't trust anyone else in this building, not even the girls you drink with most nights. The room smells like perfume turned sour, mixed with last night's firewood smoke. Your shift sticks to your skin, still damp in patches. You swing your legs over the edge of the bed and wince. There's a bruise on your thigh you don't remember getting. Another under your rib. You don't ask questions about bruises anymore. If you asked every time, you'd never stop. You push open the door and creep barefoot down the hallway. Floorboards groan beneath you. Behind the other doors, you hear snoring, muffled laughter. And, yes, someone already working. Poor creature. He must have arrived before the birds. Down the narrow back stairs, you fetch water from the rain barrel in the alley. The air outside stinks of fish guts and horse dung. The cistern's slick with algae, but the water's clean enough. You haul the bucket back up and pour it into a cracked basin. It's ice cold. You take a deep breath and splash it across your face and chest. The shock makes you gasp. Your nipples harden instantly. You scrub your arms, your underarms, your legs. There's a ragged bar of soap someone left behind, and you use it until it snaps in two. You towel off with a piece of old linen and smear a paste of crushed rosemary and fat onto your underarms. It helps, a little. You rub a clove of garlic on your wrists, not for smell, but for protection. The girls swear it keeps away bad spirits, and some men, you doubt it. But it makes you feel like you have some control, which is rare currency in this line of work. Back in your room, you shake out your hair and tie it with a bit of ribbon. You choose a dark red kirtle today. Nothing too fine, nothing too drab. Clients like colour, but you're not here to look like a noble's mistress. You pull on a woolen overdress and cinch it tight at the waist. Your shoes are cracked leather. Toes worn thin, but they'll hold through another day. Hopefully. By the time you head down to the common room, the madame is already counting coin at the hearth. She doesn't look up. "You're late," she mutters. "He's waiting in the back." You ignore her. You always do. If she really had a problem with your timing, you wouldn't still be here. The man in the back turns out to be someone new. You spot him immediately, not because he stands out, but because he doesn't. No smell of sweat, no drunk eyes, no leering smile. He just waits, calm, quiet, with clean boots and trimmed nails. A merchant, maybe. You greet him with the usual line and motion him upstairs. He follows. When you close the door behind you, he takes out a small pouch of coins and places it on the table. No haggling. You count the coins, generous. You nod and begin undressing. He doesn't speak the whole time. Not one word. That's not uncommon, but it's never comfortable. As you work, your mind drifts. You think about breakfast. Pottage with bits of carrot, maybe. Warm bread if you're lucky. When he's done and gone, you wash again. Less thoroughly this time, and lie back on the bed. For just a moment, you let your eyes close. Just a moment. The city is waking, the bells ring, dogs bark, a cart rolls over the cobbles outside, and your day has barely begun. Historical fact. In many medieval European cities, prostitution was not only tolerated but regulated. Brothels were licensed, and workers were required to undergo health checks or pay taxes directly to the city. Fringe fact: some prostitutes in 14th century Avignon wore a striped hood or yellow veil as a legal identifier, though many paid fines to avoid this branding. Scholarly debate. Historians continue to argue whether brothel life provided women with limited agency or further entrenched their exploitation, especially in cities where brothel employment was sometimes a court-imposed punishment. Your stomach growls so loud, you're sure the girl in the next room hears it. She laughs through the wall, Isabetta probably, and mutters something in dialect. You roll your eyes, slide back into your shift and head downstairs again. You've got just enough time before the madame starts barking about your next client. It's breakfast or nothing, and you're not about to face another man on an empty stomach. You step into the alley again, this time dressed for the street. The city air is sharper now, touched with the acrid scent of ash and something rotten fermenting in a barrel. You pull your shawl tighter and pick your way toward the communal cistern. Most of the neighbourhood shares it, and you never know who you'll see there. Already, a line has formed. 2 washerwomen arguing in clipped whispers, a servant boy nodding off beside a bucket, and a matron with her sleeves rolled to the elbow, eyes hard as nails. You nod at them, receive curt nods, or nothing in return. Everyone knows who you are, or what you are. There's no hiding it here, not with the smell of last night still clinging to your hair, no matter how hard you scrub. You draw water again, careful not to spill, and rinse your hands and arms a second time. It's not about being clean, it's about looking like you tried. Some clients care. When you're done, you head up toward the little corner of the market that sells food this early. It's not a proper market day, but there's always someone selling scraps. Day-old bread, overripe pears, a wheel of cheese swarming with flies. You spot a baker's apprentice setting out hand pies, still warm. The smell stops you mid-step. Meat. Real meat. Probably pigeon or pork scraps. You fish a copper from your pouch and hand it over. He looks you in the eye and smirks. "Late morning for you," he says. "Early for you," you snap back, not unkindly. He shrugs, unbothered, and turns to the next customer. You sit on the lip of a fountain to eat, legs crossed beneath your skirt, watching the city shuffle to life. Cartwheels creak over stone. A donkey brays near the tanner's stall. There's the whistle of a chimney sweep, the low chant of monks in procession, the distant bark of dogs chasing someone they shouldn't. You tear into the pie carefully, still too hot. Grease runs down your thumb. It tastes better than anything you've had all week. 2 older women pass by, one whispering something that makes the other laugh behind her veil. You know it's about you. It always is. You flash a smile so wicked it makes them look away. You hear newer gossip from a travelling haberdasher squatting by the well. He's talking loudly, hoping someone will listen. "The bishop's nephew caught with a girl in St. Bernard's last week," he says, puffing out his chest. "Not even from the brothel, from the convent." The word convent makes your ears perk. You chew slower. It's a favourite scandal. The idea that the virgins up the hill aren't so different from the women down here. You've seen enough secret night visits to know the difference is mostly the rent. As you finish your pie, a small commotion draws attention near the church steps. A priest is shouting again, something about sin and plague, God's wrath, the usual. He's waving a bell and a parchment. "The end comes for those who tempt the flesh," he hollers. You get a few glances, but most people are too busy with bread and business to care. You've heard worse, sometimes from men who paid extra. You toss the last crust to a rat darting behind a barrel and stand. You're full finally, but you feel the day tightening around you like a corset. You need to get back before the madam has a reason to mark your name on her late slate. 3 marks, and she fines you. 5, and she puts you out on the street for the night. And trust. There are worse places to be in this city after dark than inside a brothel. As you make your way back, you catch a glimpse of your reflection in a shop window. You pause. Your hair's slipped loose again. Your cheeks look hollow. You smear some spit on your fingers and smooth your brows. It doesn't help much. But you nod at the reflection anyway, like you're daring it to argue. You pass a group of boys juggling turnips in front of the butcher's stall. One throws a clod of dirt at your back. You spin and glare, but don't stop walking. They bark laughter like dogs. You've dealt with worse than boys. Just before the brothel's door, a girl from another house passes you in the street. You know her by her boots, embroidered cuffs, bright blue laces. She works the richer district near the Bishop's Square. You two eye each other, not unfriendly, not quite friends. Rain tonight, she says as you cross paths. You glance at the sky, no clouds yet. Probably, you answer. You working late? She shrugs. Depends on who knocks. You nod and she disappears down the lane, hips swinging like she owns the cobblestones. Back inside, the madam's in a mood. Don't wander so long again, she says, not looking up from her abacus. I'm not running a tavern. Could have fooled me, you mutter under your breath. She does look up at that, narrowed eyes, but she doesn't push. Maybe she's too tired to fight this morning. Maybe she remembers you took that foreign client last week that no one else would. The one who smelled like death and didn't blink once. You head back up the stairs to your room. You need to brush your hair, reapply your perfume, if you can call it that, and change your shoes. Morning's over. The working day has officially begun. Historical fact. Many medieval brothels were located near markets and churches, often because civic leaders believed proximity allowed for moral supervision and discouraged worse crimes like rape or theft. Fringe fact. Some cities assigned prostitutes official curfews or banned them from wearing certain colours, except during religious festivals, when everyone dressed like chaos anyway. Scholarly debate. Whether prostitutes participated in communal urban life or lived on its margins remains debated. Some evidence suggests they were both shunned and relied upon by the same communities. By the time you return to the front hall, the inspector's already there. He stands near the hearth like he owns the place, one boot tapping, hands folded behind his back, eyes scanning every girl in the room. You try not to groan aloud. City officials always arrive at the worst time, between clients, before you've had a proper wash, and after you've scrubbed your face raw trying to look just good enough to not get fined. He's here for the weekly inspection. Sanitary reasons, allegedly. In truth, it's more about control. The city likes to keep tabs on the money, the movement, the bodies, especially the bodies. The madam calls names one by one. You're third. You step forward when she barks it, forcing a smile. The inspector, a man in his 40s, clean-shaven with a cloak trimmed in fur he probably didn't earn honestly, eyes you slowly, not lascivious, just thorough, like he's counting your ribs or looking for fleas. Name, he says, even though he knows it already. You answer. Calm. Bored. Any injuries? Rashes? Signs of plague? You shake your head. He leans closer. You smell dried lavender on his gloves. Fancy touch for someone who pokes women like livestock. He makes a show of checking your arms, your neck, behind your ears. You want to slap him when he grabs your wrist and squeezes. Just enough pressure to remind you who he is. Passable, he mutters. Keep washing. He signs your name on the parchment and moves to the next girl. Passable, that's you. Not glowing, not diseased. Just clean enough to sell. You retreat into the shadows of the room, rubbing your wrist where his fingers left little red marks. There's an entire dance happening around you. Girls being examined, the madam whispering into the inspector's ear, probably negotiating the week's bribes. A girl named Renilda gets sent upstairs with a fever. Another gets a warning for wearing too much rouge. The room smells like sweat, smoke, and simmering nerves. Inspections like this weren't always the norm. Once, a girl could work the alleys or take clients on church steps without the city getting involved. But now sex work is a business. It's taxed, it's regulated. It's viewed as a necessary evil, which is the church's favourite way to say, we hate this, but we're not getting rid of it. Some cities have whole guilds for prostitutes. That's not your city. Here, you fall under the supervision of the officials of public morals, which is hilarious, really. Half the inspectors are clients themselves. There's a rumour one of them fathered twins with a girl who now works the upper floors. You never ask. You already know too much. The worst part is the ledger. The madame keeps it locked in a box, but everyone knows what's in it. Names, dates, payments, illnesses, complaints. If your name appears too many times under issues, you'll be barred from working, or worse, blacklisted from other houses. Then what? Starve? Marry a pig farmer? Work the docks until your teeth fall out? As the inspection wraps, the madam calls for everyone to clear out except Isabetta and that new girl, Elise. You nod to Isabetta as you pass her. She raises a brow, rolls her eyes. The universal sign for this is utter horseshit. You don't need to say it aloud. Back upstairs, you hear muffled voices rising. Sounds like the inspector's complaining about Elise. "She's too pale," he says. "Looks sickly." The madam defends her. "She's new," she hisses. "Just needs time." You know how that ends. Either Elise gets better or she disappears. Some girls just vanish overnight. No one ever asks too loudly where they've gone. Some wind up in other cities, some wind up in ditches. You retreat to your room again, shut the door gently and lean against it. It's only mid-morning and already you feel the tight pull behind your eyes. The warning ache that tells you this will be a long, long day. There's a scratching sound from outside. You open the shutters to let in a bit of air, and a small black cat perches on the ledge, licking one paw and staring like it knows every secret you've ever whispered into a pillow. You toss it a scrap of dried meat from your cloak pocket. It blinks slowly, then disappears. Superstitious girls call black cats bad omens, especially when they show up after inspections. You don't believe in that. Mostly. You dress again, this time for lunch service. That means the better clients, the ones who can pay for a midday escape while their wives pray at the cathedral. You pick a blue overdress and pin a brooch at your neckline. Not because it's real silver, but because it looks like it might be. That's usually enough. You reapply your rouge, this time with a lighter hand. You check your teeth with a shard of polished bronze, a quick spritz of rosewater on your wrists, and you're ready. The city makes rules, but within these walls, it's your performance that determines survival. You have to be what the client wants before he even knows he wants it. Some like you soft-spoken, others bold. Some want lies whispered in their ears, others want silence. The trick is learning their moods before they open their mouths. You step into the hallway again just as Isabetta exits the madame's room. Her eyes are narrowed, lips tight. "What happened?" you whisper as you pass her. She doesn't stop walking. She wants Elise off the books, says she's scaring clients. That's fast, too fast. You don't ask more, you don't want to know. Instead, you slide down the banister like you used to when you were still new and foolish and thought this job might actually lead somewhere. Your feet hit the stone with a soft thud. You straighten your back, take a breath, and step into the common room. There's a man waiting by the hearth. You recognize him immediately. Thick fingers, chewed nails, wine-blossomed nose. He's been here before. Always pays in advance. Always wants to talk about his dead wife. You put on your best smile, even as your stomach turns. "Hello again," you say, stepping toward him like he's the only man in the world. Historical fact. In many medieval cities, especially in southern Europe, municipal governments required prostitutes to register with authorities and undergo periodic inspections for public health reasons. Fringe fact. In some towns, brothels were managed by the state itself, with revenue from sex work funneled directly into public works like road repair or cathedral upkeep. Scholarly debate. Some historians argue that regulation helped protect sex workers, while others see it as a system of surveillance and oppression that left them more vulnerable than ever. The man's name is Ulrich, though you doubt that's his real one. Men like him rarely offer real names, just titles, nicknames, or whatever they think sounds respectable. Ulrich is a merchant, or claims to be. He sells bolts of wool to the church and probably pockets a little extra by cutting the yardage. Every time he comes, he asks for you. You don't know why, you don't ask. Asking implies you care, and caring makes everything heavier. He takes your hand and kisses your knuckles like a courtier in a minstrel's tale. His lips are dry and slightly chapped, but the gesture is gentle. He doesn't leer, doesn't grope. It's almost worse in a way. He looks at you like he sees someone else, someone lost long ago. You suspect that's exactly what he's doing. "I had the dream again," he says as you lead him upstairs. You nod, familiar with the rhythm of his visits. He dreams of his wife, the one who died of fever 5 winters ago. Every time he lies with you, he tells you she used to hum when she washed her hair. He likes to think he hears that same hum in your voice, even though you've never once sung in front of him. You wonder if she hated him. You wonder if she even existed. But mostly, you wonder how long he'll stay. He doesn't ask for much, just to lie beside you, sometimes to talk, sometimes not. He never takes off all his clothes. He always pays extra to ensure no one disturbs him. The girls used to joke about it, call him the morning ghost, but the jokes have stopped. Everyone knows a regular is a treasure, even a sad one. As you lie beside him, you study the ceiling. The beams are old and splintered, one of them etched with a crude drawing of a cat chasing a rat. You traced that same carving with your finger once, back when you first came here. You remember thinking it was funny. Now, it just reminds you how small everything is. Ulrich speaks softly about his wife's hair, her laugh, how she once fell into a well and emerged cursing like a sailor. You nod when appropriate, make small sounds of sympathy, but your mind is elsewhere, on Elise, on the inspector's gloved hands, on the way the market smelled this morning like dying apples. When he finally leaves, he kisses your forehead and presses a coin into your palm. You wait until he's gone before looking at it. Silver. Enough to cover your room fee and dinner, maybe even enough for new shoes if you stretch it. You wash quickly and change into a fresh chemise. The one you were wearing smells like candle wax and regret. Your stomach rumbles again, but you ignore it. The madam will serve a stew tonight, something watery and full of cabbage. Better to wait. You sit by the window for a moment, letting the breeze lick your face. Across the street, a group of children chases each other with sticks, pretending to be knights. One holds up a dented bucket as a helmet. Another shouts about dragons. You smile despite yourself. Once, not so long ago, you played those same games in the fields beyond the city walls. You had a dog then, a black mutt with white paws. You used to pretend he was your steed. Thinking about the past again, a voice calls from the doorway. Isabetta stands there, arms crossed, one eyebrow arched. She's dressed in green today, a bit of lace peeking from her collar. Too nice for a day like this. Just watching the Knights of the Alley, you say. She chuckles and steps inside. She sits beside you, close but not touching. Madam says a noble's coming later, wants the best. You snort. That you? Could be. She smirks. Could be you. You both know it's her. The madam sent her to the nobles because she knows how to flatter them without sounding fake. Isabetta's clever like that. She can pour honey in your ear and poison in your drink and make you thank her for both. You watch the street in silence for a while. The sun climbs higher. Somewhere, bells ring for noon prayers. You ever think about leaving? She asks suddenly. You don't answer right away. Every day. Would you go alone? Another pause. Then, depends who asks me to go. She hums, neither agreeing nor disagreeing. Then she stands, smooths her skirt. Don't wait too long. The city eats slow, girls. You watch her go. Her back is straight, her chin high, like she's marching into a palace instead of a bedroom that smells like sweat and spilled wine. You stay by the window a bit longer. The children have vanished. The alley's empty. You wonder where Elise is, whether she's being questioned, whether she's being packed off to the midwife again. There are rules in this place, unspoken ones. If you fall ill, you have 3 options. Lie about it, recover fast, or disappear. The madam has no room for weak lungs or slow legs. If you can't earn, you're not worth the candle it takes to light your room. And yet, somehow, you're still here, still breathing, still dressing up your skin like it's worth something. Later, you gather your skirts and return downstairs. A new man is waiting in the common room, dressed better than most. Silk cuffs, soft shoes, a ring with a stone so dark it might as well be night. He looks at you, then past you, then back again. He chooses you. You wish he hadn't. Historical fact. In many medieval cities, wealthier clients were often allowed to reserve particular prostitutes for repeat visits, a practice that blurred the lines between transaction and patronage. Fringe fact. Some sex workers, particularly in southern Europe, formed unofficial sisterhoods within brothels to pool resources and protect each other from dangerous clients or corrupt officials. Scholarly debate. The emotional labour of prostitution, particularly repeated clients who sought companionship more than sex, is often overlooked in historical analysis, but reveals much about human vulnerability in transactional relationships. The man's gaze follows you with the calm precision of someone who knows what he wants and is used to getting it. He doesn't leer, doesn't smile, just points to you like you're a slab of meat in a butcher's stall, and you know better than to hesitate. You walk over, give a polite dip of your chin, and wait for the madam to confirm. She does with a subtle tilt of her head. That's all the signal you need. This one's got coin, probably double the usual rate, judging by the cut of his tunic and the richness of the embroidery around his collar. Silk that fine doesn't exist in this part of town unless it's passing through. You lead him upstairs, careful to keep your steps quiet. Men like him don't want to hear footsteps. They want silk and candlelight, softness and silence. You open the door to the nicer room, the one with the uncracked looking glass and the newer mattress. He doesn't speak until the door is shut. "Take off the dress," he says. You nod, your fingers moving slowly over the ties at your side. As you undress, you watch him in the mirror. He doesn't watch your body, not exactly. He watches the way you watch him, like he's waiting for you to reveal something. Some flicker of nervousness or hunger or fear. But you've done this too many times to give away anything you don't want to. The dress drops to the floor with a soft thump. He walks forward and circles you once, fingertips ghosting along your shoulder. You suppress a shiver. His touch isn't rough, not exactly, but there's a sharpness behind it, a sense of ownership, not lust, control. "You've done this long?" he asks. You smile politely. "Long enough to know when to answer and when not to." He hums a little, apparently pleased. "Clever." You nod, but inside you're gauging him like you would a wild dog, where the teeth are, how likely he is to bite. He doesn't undress fully, only unbuttons his tunic halfway and steps behind you. No talking, no pleasantries. You count the marks on the wall while he does what he came for. There's one shaped like a tree, another like a fish. Someone must have scratched them in during a long night. You think of them as ghosts, people who once stood exactly where you're standing now. When he's finished, he leaves without a word, drops a coin pouch on the table. You wait until his footsteps disappear down the stairs before checking it. 6 silver coins, and something else. A ring. Not gold, but a heavy brass band engraved with a small seal. You frown. It's too personal for a man like that to leave behind casually. Either it's a mistake, or it's a message. Neither possibility makes you feel better. You take the pouch and the ring and tuck both into the bottom of your trunk. Then you scrub yourself clean, harder than usual. You sit on the edge of the bed afterward, dripping, cold, staring at the mirror. It reflects you back like a stranger. Pale, tired. A small scratch across your collarbone you hadn't felt until just now. You wrap yourself in your shift and go downstairs again. The madame doesn't look up from her ledgers. "Good work," she says. "He said he'll return." You don't answer. You don't want him to return. Back in the dressing room, some of the other girls are comparing scarves and laughter is bouncing off the stone walls like it's something real. Elise isn't among them. Isabetta sits in the corner sewing a tear in her petticoat with steady hands. You sit beside her and whisper, "He left a ring." She glances at you, then back at her stitching. "Don't return it. Don't mention it. If it's a test, you fail either way." You nod. You already suspected that. As the sun lowers and the air begins to take on the smell of smoke and roasting onions from the street vendors, you retreat to the shared wardrobe room to prepare for evening. This is where the real work begins, where appearances matter most. There's a rack of dresses shared among the house, and each one says something different. Tonight, you choose the green one, cut low, but with long sleeves. It says sensual but discreet, which is the safest bet for unknown clients. You add a thin necklace made of painted glass beads, looped twice to make it look richer than it is. Your hair is the last part. You wet your fingers and twist it back loosely, pinning it in a style that mimics the court ladies. Half up, soft waves, a few pieces left to frame your face. It's not the real thing, but it's close enough in candlelight. That's the trick. You only have to hold the illusion until the lights go out. Before you leave the room, you dab a mixture of crushed violets and goose fat behind your ears. It's your secret recipe. The others use roses or citrus, but you like the violets. They smell like the gardens outside your grandmother's cottage, the one you haven't seen since you were 12. Downstairs, the common room begins to fill. Laughter, boots on stone, clinking mugs. Men loosen their belts and lean into the fantasy that this room, this night, this woman will undo the weight of their world. You circulate, offering drinks, smiles, a few carefully placed touches. You spot the bailiff in the corner, drunk already, singing a song about a goat and a lady he shouldn't name. There's a foreign merchant flirting terribly with a girl named Rosa, who pretends not to understand him. There's even a scribe from the cathedral, trying to hide behind a hood. You let him be. He'll find someone eventually. You pass Isabetta, who gives you the smallest nod. then turns to a man with hands like sausages and begins the performance. You smile to yourself. She's a master. A new client catches your eye. Young. Handsome in a soft, unformed way. His cloak is dusty, his boots worn. Not rich, not poor. You walk over, offer a drink. "I'm just looking," he says nervously. "You don't have to buy," you answer, "but you'll still be tempted." He laughs. Actually laughs. And you feel something shift. Not quite interest, not quite pity. Just recognition. For a second, you remember what it was like to want someone without price attached, but the moment passes, and your hand finds his gently. "Come upstairs," you whisper, "and I'll make you forget your name." Historical fact. In some medieval brothels, clothing and accessories were shared communally among sex workers, and certain colour schemes like red, green or blue held subtle coded meanings. Fringe fact. Perfumed ointments made from herbs and animal fat were a common part of sex workers' routines, used both to entice and to mask odours in a time of rare bathing. Scholarly debate. Historians continue to argue how much agency prostitutes had in presenting themselves. Were these outfits and gestures acts of empowerment, or enforced scripts within a rigid power structure? You lead him slowly, not rushing like you would with the usual sort. He follows with careful steps, glancing around as if he expects someone to leap from the shadows and accuse him. Maybe he's new to this, or maybe he just has the kind of face that carries guilt too easily. Either way, you already know you'll have to do more comforting than teasing. You can tell by the way his eyes flit to the side instead of meeting yours, the way he keeps adjusting his belt like he regrets wearing it at all. Once in your room, you close the door gently and gesture toward the stool by the wash basin. He sits there without a word, fingers fiddling with the edge of his sleeve. "No need to be nervous," you say, voice softened like worn velvet. "You don't have to do anything you don't want to." "I've never been with someone like you," he says, then immediately winces as if realizing that sounded worse out loud. You smile just enough to make him relax. "You mean someone who knows what she's doing?" He laughs, just a small, embarrassed puff of air, and nods. You move slowly as you approach, undoing your hairpin, letting the loose strands fall around your face. There's something gentle in this interaction, something you don't usually get from the men who storm in with wine breath and grab whatever they please. This one keeps his hands firmly on his knees. He's still sweating, though. You kneel in front of him and reach for his hand. His skin is cold. You lay it over your shoulder. Hold it there. "There," you whisper. "Now you're not just looking. You're part of this." He exhales slowly and finally meets your eyes. The next moments are quiet. No urgent grabbing, no roaring bravado. You undress him gradually, helping where he's unsure, guiding where he fumbles. He blushes when your fingers skim his collarbone. You say nothing. Not every man needs a show. Some just want to be seen. When it's done, he rests back on the mattress like a man who's just survived a storm. You sit beside him, one leg curled beneath you, and sip from a clay cup of watered wine. He watches you in silence for a while. "I'm not from here," he says eventually. "I'm from the hills, near Verdun." You nod. "You've never been, but you've heard it's green and wild, all brambles and goats." "My family. They think I'm studying law," he adds, almost sheepishly. You raise an eyebrow. "You don't strike me as a lawyer." "I'm not," he admits. "I came here to paint." You blink, caught off guard. "Paint what?" He shrugs. "Faces, saints, animals. Anything, really. My master said I had no eye for proportion, so he sent me off." "Kind," you murmur dryly. He chuckles, then looks down at his hands. "I just needed something that didn't make me feel like a ghost. That, more than anything, strikes something inside you. Because no matter how many people touch your skin, speak your name, or lay beside you, some days you do feel like a ghost. A beautiful, well-dressed phantom that men pass through on their way to forgetting." You don't say any of this, of course. Instead, you lean forward and press a soft kiss to his cheek. "For what it's worth," you whisper, "you don't look like a ghost to me." He smiles again, this time bigger, and starts to dress. He lingers at the door, hesitating. "I might come back," he says. You nod. "You might." And with that, he's gone. Later, as you tidy the room, you find a small folded scrap of parchment tucked beneath your pillow, a sketch. It's crude, unfinished, just a few lines, but you recognize yourself in the profile, the curve of your jaw. the downward glance of your eyes. You stare at it for a long time before slipping it inside your trunk with the ring. The house is quiet for the moment, the usual lull between the supper rush and the nighttime crowd. You take advantage of it to step outside into the back courtyard, where the laundry hangs limp and still. The air smells of rain, though the sky hasn't cracked yet. Somewhere in the distance, a dog howls long and mournful. You sit on a broken barrel, lift your skirts just enough to let your knees breathe. A few other girls are scattered around, smoking herbs, sipping wine, airing out their sleeves. No one speaks much, everyone's conserving energy for the night ahead. "I heard the Duke's squire is in town," murmurs Rosa nearby, flicking ash off her boot. "That one who likes to be whipped?" another girl asks. Rosa shrugs. "There's more than one." You smirk quietly into your lap. Nothing surprises you anymore. Not the strange requests, not the noble sons who come here trying to feel dangerous, not even the ones who beg you to pretend to be their mother. That one took you a while to forget. Isabetta appears from the shadows, carrying a jar of rosewater and a small packet wrapped in cloth. She sits beside you, unwraps it, and offers a piece of candied ginger. "For the stomach," she says. "You've been rubbing it all night." You hadn't noticed, but she's right. It's sore. A dull ache in your lower belly that comes and goes. "You think I've got something?" She shakes her head. "Probably just nerves, maybe bad wine." You chew the ginger slowly, grateful for the sharp sweetness. For a moment, you almost feel human. "Did you hear about the woman near the square?" Isabetta says quietly. "The one they found in the bathhouse?" You nod. "Throat cut? Just like the one last month." You both go silent. There's been talk lately. Too many girls turning up dead. Not just in brothels, but in alleyways, behind taverns, even in the temple gardens. Authorities blame thieves, or jealousy, or curses, anything but the truth. You've seen that truth too many times in the eyes of certain clients. "Be careful tonight," she murmurs, pressing the ginger packet into your hand. "Don't go with anyone you don't know." You nod, heart tightening. Because you don't know. Not really. Historical fact. In medieval Europe, prostitutes sometimes received gifts like jewellery, drawings, or poems from clients who fancied themselves in love, blurring the line between commerce and courtship. Fringe fact. Candied ginger was used not only as a digestive, but also as a mild aphrodisiac and menstrual regulator, common knowledge among women, rarely mentioned in formal records. Scholarly debate, romanticised portrayals of prostitute-client relationships in art and poetry, often obscure the power imbalance and the transactional nature of these encounters, leaving historians to parse reality from literary fantasy. By the time the bells toll for Vespers, the sky has turned the colour of old bruises, lavender and ash, threaded with streaks of burnt orange. That soft, strange hour between daylight and full dark. It's the time when the priests light incense, when old men stumble home from taverns, and when your kind starts working in earnest. You've changed again, this time into a plum-coloured dress with an open neckline and sleeves just tight enough to show off your arms. Men notice arms. They pretend they don't, but they do. You're lighting a candle in the front room when he appears, a friar in dust-covered sandals, robes that hang like wilted leaves, and a look in his eyes like he wants to set the whole building on fire. You freeze for a second, not from fear, not exactly, but because you've seen him before. He's passed by this brothel half a dozen times in the last month, always with that same expression, disgust twisted into something holier than thou, as if glaring hard enough might chase the sin out of the stone. Tonight, he doesn't just pass. He stops. He stands just outside the threshold, close enough for the glow from your candle to catch in the shadow of his hood. You meet his gaze, candle still in hand. He doesn't speak, doesn't even blink, just stares at you like you've done something unspeakable by existing. You nod politely, the way you might to a baker or a butcher. "Evening, father," he sneers. "Haw!" The word hits like a slap, not because it's new, God knows you've heard worse, but because of the weight behind it. Like he's praying it hurts. You hold his stare for a moment longer, then shrug. Better a paid one than a lying one. His face darkens like storm clouds rolling in. His mouth opens again, but he stops himself. Turns on his heel and vanishes down the alley, robes snapping behind him like the wings of a wounded crow. Behind you, someone chuckles. Isabetta. "He's the kind that protests the loudest," she says. sipping from a cup of mulled wine. Mark my words, he'll be back. Just not through the front door. She's probably right. The city's full of holy men with filthy secrets. You've lain with more than one friar who muttered prayers as you unfastened his belt. There was one who cried after, not out of shame, but because he said he felt close to God in your arms. That one tipped well. You go back to your candle, adjusting the wick, watching the flame flicker in the draught. A few more men trickle in, merchants mostly, smelling of garlic and ambition. One wears a fur-lined cape and claims to have dined with the prince's cousin. Another boasts about buying a new horse and a mistress in the same week. All of them drink too much. All of them look right through you until they decide to want you. As the evening deepens, the city outside grows louder. Voices echo off the stone walls, some laughing, some angry. Somewhere not far away, someone starts playing a lute and singing a song about a woman with golden hair who turns into a fox. You've heard that one before. The fox always dies. You take a moment to lean against the doorway and breathe. You're not tired yet, not physically, but there's a kind of soul weariness that clings to you most nights, like smoke in your lungs. You remember what the friar said, not the word itself, but the way he said it, like he was asking God to strike you dead on the spot. Funny thing though, the same God who made men like him also made you. That thought gets you through some nights. Just then, the door creaks open again. A familiar face steps through, older, balding, with a crooked smile and coins always clinking in his purse. He's been coming here for years, treats the girls well, never stays long, always tells the same joke about the nun and the baker. Tonight, though, he's not alone. Trailing behind him is a boy, maybe 17, wide-eyed and trying not to show it. His tunic is too fine for a servant, too plain for a noble, probably a merchant's son. First time. You can tell by the way he clutches the doorframe like it might vanish. The older man scans the room, spots you and grins. There she is, best in the city. You smile graciously. You've learned to accept flattery like a gift you can't return. He gestures to the boy. My nephew, scared of his own shadow, needs a gentle introduction to the world. You nod, understanding immediately. Some clients want fire, others want rain. This one needs warm milk and a bedtime story. You beckon gently, no pressure. The boy follows you upstairs like a lamb led to shearing. You keep it simple. No tricks, no costumes, just soft words and slower hands. He shakes so badly at first you think he might bolt, but you guide him with patience, let him speak when he wants, and go quiet when he doesn't. At one point, he apologizes for his inexperience, his nerves, his entire existence, really. You hush him gently, stroke his hair. By the end, he's breathing steadily. Not triumphant, not transformed, just real, in a way many older men forget how to be. Before he leaves, he presses a coin into your hand and whispers, "Thank you. It's only copper, but you smile anyway." After he's gone, you lie back on the bed, eyes tracing the cracks in the ceiling plaster. The friar's words echo again, faint but sticky. Whore. You say it to yourself out loud just once, then you laugh. Because yes, you are. And you're also kind, clever, tired, angry, and sometimes even happy. You're not one word. You are the whole damned story. Historical fact. Medieval religious institutions often denounce prostitutes publicly, while privately tolerating or even partaking in their services, especially among the clergy, whose vows were frequently broken in secret. Fringe fact. In some cities, sex workers were forced to attend public sermons about morality, sitting in designated shame benches where they were expected to listen without speaking. Scholarly debate. Historians continue to discuss whether religion's role in regulating prostitution was rooted in moral policing or in a desire to control women's autonomy under the guise of spiritual salvation. You don't bother changing out of the plum dress. It's already moulded to your shape, faintly creased where his hands held your waist. It's not worth peeling off just to put on something else that smells like every other night you've ever worked. Instead, you slip into the back room where the wine is stored, lean against the cool wall and pour yourself half a cup. Not too much. Just enough to smooth the edges of your thoughts. Isabetta appears not long after, hips swaying with practiced ease, hair pinned high and already fraying. You've seen her in every mood, stormy, sharp-tongued, laughing so hard she spits wine through her nose. But tonight, She's tight-lipped, eyes scanning the shadows like she's reading a book only she can see. You hold up your cup. She takes it from your hand and drinks the rest without asking. "Thanks," she mutters. "Rough one." She exhales through her nose. "A noble, one of those with soft hands and cruel mouths, asked me to bark like a dog, then got angry when I didn't wag my tail." You snort. "Tell him it costs extra next time. He didn't even tip." She slides down the wall beside you, skirts pooling around her ankles. "Said my performance lacked spirit. I told him if he wanted spirit, he should have brought a priest." You laugh softly, and for a moment the room feels warmer. You sit there together in silence, the kind that comes only when you've been through fire with someone and know there's nothing left to burn. Isabetta rests her head on your shoulder. "You remember Alina?" she asks suddenly. You nod. Of course you remember. Tall girl, long legs, that little freckle under her lip. Gone a year now. One night she was here, the next morning her room was empty, no warning. No goodbye. "She sent me a letter," Isabetta whispers. "She's in Bruges, married to a spice trader. Says he knows everything and doesn't care." You raise your eyebrows. "He knows she worked here?" "Knows, and still married her. Gave her a silver necklace and a little dog." You sit with that image for a moment. Alina, in a house with windows, maybe a garden, maybe even peace. "Do you think it's true?" you ask. Isabetta shrugs. "She sent the letter. That's all I know." You wonder what Alina had that made someone choose her. Was it her laugh? Her clever tongue? Or was it luck? Pure and brutal like a coin toss in the dark. The front door creaks, voices rising again. Another wave of clients. You hear the madam's voice, sharp and honeyed, the way she speaks when someone important arrives. Isabetta sighs and rises to her feet. "Back to the stage," she mutters. But before she leaves, she turns back to you. "You're the only one I trust in this place. If I ever disappear, I want you to know I didn't run without saying goodbye." You blink. It's the closest she's come to admitting fear. You nod, and she nods back, and then she's gone, lost in the sea of voices and velvet and smoke. You linger a little longer, listening to the thud of boots upstairs, the creak of beds, the whispers through thin walls. Then you step into the main room again, wine buzz gently tingling in your veins. Rosa is playing her usual game, leaning over the table with a laugh too loud to be real, running her finger along the rim of a client's cup. She sees you and winks. You offer a quick smile. You know that game. You've played it enough times to forget what your own laugh sounds like when it's not staged. You weave through the crowd, checking faces. Familiar, unfamiliar, dangerous. You're always scanning, always listening. You hear talk of a hanging down by the bridge, of a baker arrested for shaving weights, of a thief caught with a bishop's ring in his shoe, and then you hear your name. Low voice, male. You turn casually, trying not to look startled. It's not a man you recognise. Young, clean-shaven, clothes too fine for this district, yet he moves like he belongs here. His hair is neatly combed, his fingernails clean. A court clerk, maybe, or someone playing at being one. "You're her?" he asks. "The one from the Eastern Room?" You nod slowly. "Depends on who's asking." He smiles, not friendly, calculating. "Someone recommended you." You don't like that. Too vague, too smooth. Still you gesture upstairs. Better to be in your own space than exposed down here. As you lead him up, he talks, not to you, at you. Mentions his father, who's some judge or steward. Brags about the poetry he writes, which you suspect is terrible. The kind of man who wants you to be impressed by everything he says and nothing he does. Once inside, he doesn't sit. Just walks the room like he's inspecting it. "You've been here long?" he asks. Long enough, he turns to you. "Do you ever think about leaving?" "Every day." He grins like that's a joke. "You could come with me." You pause. "Now?" "No," he says, almost laughing. "Someday." You've heard that before. Men who think their attention is a rope you'll climb out of your life with. But it's never rope, it's a leash. You say nothing, begin to undo the ties at your hip. He doesn't touch you, not at first. Just watches. "I'd write about you," he says. "Immortalize you." "In a sonnet?" you ask dryly. "In something grander." You smile, but only with your mouth. When he finally comes to you, he's gentle, more than you expected. But it's not warmth, it's control. like he's crafting a scene he can replay later, imagining himself a saviour in silk sleeves. When it's done, he leaves a silver coin shaped like a star on your dresser. Unusual mint. You turn it in your fingers after he's gone. Isabetta appears at your door not long after, eyes sharp. "That man you just had," she says quietly. "He's the bailiff's nephew." You blink. Should I be flattered? She doesn't smile. "He's dangerous." You slip the coin into your pouch. Aren't they all? Historical fact. In some medieval cities, brothels were monitored by local bailiffs or officials whose relatives often visited the very establishments they were supposed to regulate. Fringe fact. Women working in licensed brothels were sometimes called upon to testify in court, either against violent clients or about street crimes they happened to witness. Scholarly debate. Some scholars believe close ties between brothels and law enforcement offered limited protection to sex workers, while others argue these relationships were more exploitative than supportive. The next day comes like it always does, soft at first, then cruel. The light bleeds in through the shutters before you're ready for it, washing the walls in pale grey. You slept, but not well. Your body aches in the usual places: shoulders, lower back, thighs. There's a soreness at your temples too from clenching your jaw in your sleep. You push yourself upright, stretch your arms until the joints crack and sit in silence for a moment, listening to the house breathe around you. Floorboards groaning, footsteps muffled by rugs. The occasional cough from someone with a morning chill they'll swear isn't turning into anything worse. You don't have to work until later tonight, but you know better than to stay cooped up in your room. The air gets stale quickly, and the quiet begins to hum with memories if you let it. You splash cold water on your face, wrap yourself in a cloak and slip out the back without alerting the madam. You're not doing anything forbidden. Yet. The courtyard is shaded and smells of damp stone. A stray chicken pecks at a mouldy heel of bread near the cistern. You step over it and make your way through the narrow alley that leads to the square. You pass the butcher's stall, the baker's window, the bookbinder who always smells of glue and regret. You stop for a moment near the tinker's cart, watching him hammer metal into shape, his hands dark with soot. He glances up and nods. You nod back. He never says much. Maybe that's why you like him. Then, like always, you drift toward the place you don't talk about, the university courtyard. You never go inside, of course. You wouldn't be allowed past the steps, but you sit on the low wall near the edge and listen. Today, 3 men in robes are arguing in the shade of a fig tree. You catch phrases: free will, original sin, the root of female temptation. You roll your eyes so hard it almost hurts. Every week, some variation of the same topic. Women are always the problem, broke. Whether it's Eve with her apple or prostitutes with their perfectly visible ankles. You pluck a leaf from the fig tree above you and crush it between your fingers, enjoying the bitter smell it leaves behind. A 4th man joins the group, taller, younger, with ink-stained fingers. He doesn't argue. He listens, head tilted, hands clasped behind his back. When the others disperse, he notices you sitting there, doesn't leer, just studies your face with that calm, curious gaze that reminds you too much of last night's client. You turn away. "You come here often," he says. You consider pretending you didn't hear, but something about his voice, gentle, low, makes you answer. "Often enough." "Are you a student of philosophy?" he asks, smiling. You snort. "Only the kind they don't teach here." He tilts his head. "That's probably the better kind." You glance at him again, more carefully this time. He doesn't wear the arrogance most of the scholars wear, like a second cloak. He's thin, thoughtful, maybe even harmless. But you've been fooled before. You keep your distance. "Do you believe in the soul?" he asks. "Which one?" you reply. "Mine or yours?" He laughs at that. Not mockingly, like he's genuinely surprised. "You're quick. No one survives this long being slow." He doesn't ask your name, which is another point in his favour. Instead, he pulls a small book from his satchel and hands it to you. The leather cover is cracked, the pages dog-eared. Inside is a poem written in French, about a knight who falls in love with a woman he thinks is a queen, only to discover she's a beggar in disguise. You read it slowly, your lips barely moving. "Is it supposed to be romantic?" you ask when you finish. "I think it's supposed to be humbling," he says. You hand the book back. "Then I hope he stepped on a nail." That earns another laugh. He tucks the book away and nods farewell, disappearing behind the columned arch. You sit there a little longer, watching pigeons argue over crumbs. The sun warms the back of your neck, and for a moment you almost forget where you're going next. You rise and make your way toward the midwife's house. It's tucked behind the baker's, small, quiet, surrounded by hanging herbs that sway in the breeze. You knock once. She answers with a raised eyebrow, already knowing. "Inside," she says, stepping aside. The air inside her house smells like wormwood and old blood. Jars line every surface. Dried roots, powders, pickled things in cloudy liquid. You've been here before. Once, when a girl thought she might be pregnant. Another time, when someone came back from a client coughing blood. The midwife is old, sharp-tongued, and uninterested in your small talk. "What is it this time?" she asks. You hesitate. "Just not feeling right." She nods, expression unreadable. "You'll need tea?" "Tansy, juniper, and a bit of parsley." You sit while she mixes the herbs. Outside, a dog barks. Inside, the only sounds are the creak of wood and the gentle clink of glass. When she hands you the tea, it smells like soil and death. You drink it anyway. "It'll cramp," she warns. "Don't go far." You nod. You know what to expect. Before you leave, you press a silver coin into her hand. She looks at it, then at you. "You're not the first," she says, "and you won't be the last." You walk back slower than usual, stomach already tightening. It's not fear. It's the quiet resignation of someone who's been through this before, who's seen what happens when someone waits too long to take control of their own body. Back at the house, the other girls are lounging in the courtyard. Isabetta waves you over, her hands stained with berry juice from some tart the cook gave her. You sit beside her, pressing your fingers against your stomach beneath your cloak. "What did you do this morning?" she asks. "Listen to men argue about sin," you say, "then went to get rid of mine." She doesn't flinch, just passes you a piece of tart. "You're always braver than the rest of us," she says. You chew the tart slowly, eyes fixed on the clouds overhead. Historical fact: herbal remedies for pregnancy prevention and abortion were common in medieval Europe and often passed down through female knowledge networks, despite being unrecorded or condemned by church authorities. Fringe fact: tansy, rue, and pennyroyal were among the most widely used herbs for inducing menstruation, though they were often as dangerous as they were effective. Scholarly debate. Historians continue to debate how much reproductive autonomy women in the Middle Ages truly had. While official records reflect suppression, folk practices suggest a shadow culture of knowledge and control. You feel it first as a tightening low in your belly, deep and slow, like a fist clenching inside your skin. Not painful yet, but enough to remind you the tea is working. You stay seated in the courtyard a little longer, letting the pain build while you stare at the rippling clothesline and listen to the clatter of someone dropping a pan in the kitchen. It's late afternoon now. Shadows stretch long across the stone and the house has begun to shift again, gearing up for the night like a beast stretching its limbs after a day of sleep. You make your way to your room carefully, taking the stairs slower than usual, one hand grazing the wall to steady yourself. The pain deepens, still manageable, but blooming now, like a warning flower. You lie down, fully dressed, eyes fixed on the ceiling, arms resting over your stomach as though you could somehow press it all back inside. A knock at the door startles you. You don't answer. It opens anyway. Of course it does. Rosa peeks in, face curious but cautious. "Madam wants you downstairs." You close your eyes. "I'm not ready." "Too bad. There's a client asking for you by name." You exhale sharply through your nose. That means it's one of the regulars. Or worse, someone who heard about you and wants to test the rumours. You rise slowly. Each movement drags like you're underwater. "You okay?" Rosa asks, more gently now. "Just tired," you lie. She doesn't push, just nods and slips out. You force yourself to change into the green dress with the gold trim, one of your better ones. The pain pulses now, sharper than before, like your body wants to peel itself in half but isn't quite sure how. You rub your lower back with the heel of your palm, grit your teeth, and dab perfume at your wrists. Then you look at yourself in the mirror. You look fine. Which is to say, you look like you always do, painted, poised, ready. No one would guess your insides are unravelling by degrees. Downstairs, the man waiting is someone you've seen before but never serviced. A cloth merchant, you think. He's rotund and smiles with teeth that are just a bit too sharp. He wears 3 rings on one hand and a feather in his hat, and he talks like a man who loves the sound of his own voice. "Ah," he says when you appear. "There she is, the one they speak of." You smile with your mouth only. "Then they must be bored." He laughs and follows you upstairs. As you close the door behind you, your belly twists again, sharp enough to make your breath hitch. You hide it behind a stretch, turning your back to him as you pretend to check the candles. He talks while you undress, about the price of wool, a wedding he attended, some scandal involving a mayor's wife and a local priest. You nod in the right places, making sounds of interest. He doesn't notice you're barely present. He wants only a warm body and the illusion of attention. When he finally moves toward you, his touch is rough. Not violent, but careless. The kind of man who doesn't think softness is necessary if he's paying for time. You grit your teeth and go still inside, letting your mind drift away while your body does what's expected. It's not the worst you've had. Not by far. But the pain inside you builds with every passing minute, a steady pressure that turns your vision fuzzy around the edges. He finishes quickly, grunting, sweating, satisfied. "You're quiet," he says, pulling up his trousers. "I save my voice for men who earn it," you reply, smiling just enough to keep it playful. He laughs again, thinking you're joking. You hand him his coat. He leaves a coin on the table, silver, thankfully, and disappears. You lock the door the moment he's gone and collapse onto the bed, curling around your centre. Now it hits full force. The cramps ripple through your abdomen like waves on broken glass. You press a pillow against your stomach and scream into it. Not loud, just enough to let the pain out without calling attention. You know better than to make a scene. No one wants drama from a working girl. Suffering, yes, but quiet suffering. Time passes, 10 minutes, an hour, you're not sure. Eventually the sharpest edges of pain begin to dull. You wipe your face with the corner of the sheet and sit up slowly. You're sweating. Your thighs are damp. You check the linen beneath you. Blood. Not a lot, but enough to know it's begun. You dress again, slower this time. Every movement feels like lifting a stone. You change the bedding yourself. If the madam sees blood, there'll be questions you're not in the mood to answer. When you finally step into the hallway, the house is louder than before. The nighttime crowd has fully arrived. Laughter, clinking glasses, drunken boasts echoing up the stairs. You head to the courtyard again, hoping for air. There you find a commotion. A group of young apprentices, barely men, has gathered near the gate, drunk and rowdy. One of them is shouting a song that's half lyrics, half slurs. Another is waving what looks like a dead rat on a stick. You stay back in the shadows, unnoticed for now. But then one of them, tall, wide-shouldered, with an uneven beard, spots Elise. She's just stepped outside to dump a basin of water. She doesn't see them at first. The man with the rat yells, "Hey whore, want a nibble?" He throws the dead rat at her feet. She startles, almost trips over her own skirts. They laugh. One whistles, another makes a crude gesture. You see the panic in her eyes. She's not built for this, still too new, still too soft. You know that kind of terror, the kind that makes your throat tighten and your legs forget how to move. You step forward. "Get out," you say, loud enough to cut through the noise. The men pause, startled. "House is closed to drunks tonight," you add, "unless you want to pay triple and get nothing in return." They scoff, but the moment breaks. The spell of cruelty, fragile and stupid as it always is, dissolves. One of them throws the rat into the street. Another mutters something about not worth it. Slowly they drift off. Elise clutches her basin like it's a shield. "Thank you," she whispers. You nod. "Next time, carry the water like it's boiling." They respect a woman who might throw it. She half smiles, then hurries back inside. You stay out a little longer, watching the sky. The moon has risen, thin and sharp like a coin held between two fingers. Somewhere in the distance, church bells toll. And just below them, laughter rises again, louder now. The city never truly sleeps, it just drinks more. Historical fact. Young apprentices in medieval towns often ran in street gangs, causing trouble and sometimes targeting women, especially prostitutes, with harassment or violence. Fringe fact. Rat throwing was not uncommon in city streets, often used by youths to mock or threaten people seen as beneath them. including beggars, lepers, and sex workers. Scholarly debate. Some historians argue that public harassment of sex workers was tolerated, even encouraged, as a form of moral policing, while others suggest it reflected deeper class tensions and male insecurity. You return to your room with the taste of bile in your mouth and the night still pressing in like a thumb against your ribs. The pain hasn't left. It just sits quieter now, curled at the base of your spine like a cat that refuses to go. You undress in the dark, carefully, not wanting to see the stains on your linens or the shadows under your eyes. You wipe your thighs clean with a damp cloth, change into a loose shift and light the candle on the windowsill. The flame flickers once, twice, and then holds. You're not expecting anyone else. The house is near full, the madam satisfied, and you've earned enough for today. Enough for soap, wine, a handful of herbs, maybe even a small piece of cheese from the good stall at the market, assuming it's not crawling with flies again. You settle onto the mattress with a soft grunt and begin to unbraid your hair. You get halfway through when you hear it. 3 knocks. Slow. Deliberate. You don't answer right away. Something about the rhythm puts your nerves on edge. You consider pretending to be asleep, but then the knob turns. Only the madam and Isabetta have keys, but the door doesn't open. Another knock. Louder this time. You rise and pad to the door barefoot, your voice is sharp, low. Occupied. Silence. Then a man's voice, smooth, unfamiliar. The madam said you'd see me. You pause. That's not how this works. You get warned, summoned, handed a signal, a coin, something. No client just walks upstairs unannounced. You crack the door open an inch. The man standing there is tall, wrapped in a dark travelling cloak. The hood is still drawn up. You can't see his face. I'm not taking any more tonight, you say. She said you were, he replies, his voice velvet over steel. You consider slamming the door. You consider calling for Isabetta. But instead, and you're not sure why, you open the door fully and step aside. He enters without thanks, gliding like a shadow. As if he's done this 100 times before. His boots make no sound on the floorboards. He smells faintly of myrrh, of distant incense, sweet and heavy, the kind burned in cathedrals. You close the door behind him and wait. He lowers his hood. You've never seen him before. Dark eyes, pale skin, clean-shaven with a face that could pass for a noble or a monk, depending on the angle of the candlelight. His expression doesn't flicker. He just studies the room like he's memorizing it. You clear your throat. Payment first. He reaches into his cloak and removes a small pouch, places it on the table. You check the weight. Heavier than you expect. Gold coins by the feel of it. Is this for the night? You ask. No, he says. Just for your attention. You blink. Then you should go to the tavern. Cheaper there. He smiles, not kindly. They talk too much. There's something in the way he says it that makes your skin go tight over your bones. You sit slowly, on the edge of the bed. You're used to men who want strange things. You've played maid, noblewoman, prisoner, ghost. You've barked like a dog. You've wept on command. But this feels different. Like he hasn't decided what he wants yet. Like you're the thing being shaped. He moves to stand beside the window, fingers resting on the sill. You live a dangerous life. You laugh once, dry and sharp. And you live a dramatic one. He turns his gaze on you. Those eyes too dark, too still. Do you believe in fate? He asks. No. Liar. You flinch, just barely. But he sees it. Who are you? You ask, your voice quieter now. A traveller. A collector. A man who pays for what he wants. And what do you want? He doesn't answer. Just walks toward you, slowly, like your prey that hasn't run yet. You rise to meet him, more out of instinct than bravery. He stops inches from you. Close enough that you can see the flecks in his eyes. Green, brown, maybe even gold. The colour of fallen leaves. Tell me something, he says. Something true. You stare at him, heart pounding harder now. Not from attraction, not even from fear. From something deeper. Recognition, maybe, or the absence of it. I want to leave this place, you say before you can stop yourself. He tilts his head. Why don't you? Because I haven't figured out who I'd be if I did. He studies you a moment longer. Then, slowly, he lifts one hand and brushes your hair back from your face. His fingers are cold. You already know, he says. You're just afraid to say it. And then he's gone. Turns, walks out, disappears down the hall without another word. You stand there, frozen, one hand on your cheek. You look down at the pouch again. Gold. You spill it onto the table. 10 coins, all minted in Venice. You turn one over and see something etched on the edge. 3 letters you don't recognise. You're still staring at the coins when Isabetta bursts in, face pale. Did he come here? You look up. Who? The man in the dark cloak. You nod slowly. Her hands tremble. He came to Rosa's room first. She sent him away. You narrow your eyes. What is it? Who is he? She swallows. They say he's been to 3 other houses, always asks for one girl, always leaves behind gold. Then a week later, the girl vanishes. You go cold. Vanished. No one knows where. Just gone. Clothes still in the room. Coins untouched. You both look at the pouch. He didn't touch me, you whisper. Yet, Isabetta says. The candle flickers once and goes out. Historical fact. Venetian gold ducats were widely used across medieval Europe for their reliability and purity, often appearing far from their point of origin. Fringe fact. There were urban legends in some cities of mysterious men, cloaked strangers or angels of death, who visited brothels and were later associated with disappearances, disease, or unexplained deaths. Scholarly debate. Whether such stories were rooted in real events, moral cautionary tales, or outbreaks of plague remains a point of contention among historians of medieval folklore and urban myth. You don't sleep that night. Not really. You lie in your bed, listening to every creak, every footstep, every cough and laugh and groan that floats through the wooden bones of the house. Your candle's long gone, but the moonlight slices through the shutters in thin bars, striping the floor like a prison. You try to tell yourself it was just another client, just another man with a taste for theatrics and a heavy purse. But the longer you lie there, the more your skin prickles. Something about him lingers in the room, like smoke from a fire that has already gone out. In the morning, the coins are still on your table. You don't touch them. Not because you think they'll vanish, though that would almost be a relief, but because something about them feels like a test. Like if you take them, you've agreed to something without knowing the terms. You wrap them in a cloth and stuff them deep in your trunk. You consider throwing them into the river, or handing them to the madam, or melting them down if you could find someone with a forge who wouldn't ask questions. But you do none of those things. You go about your morning as usual, splash water on your face, shake out your skirts, tie your hair. The house is quieter than usual, though. Isabetta is gone when you check her room. The sheets are cold. You find a scrap of paper under her pillow, a note scrawled in her sharp handwriting. Gone to the herbalist. Don't wait up. You exhale. That's better than what you feared. Still, the tension follows you like a shadow. It wraps itself around your ribs while you head to the small alley off Market Street, where the herbalist waits behind a curtain of drying chamomile. You duck inside, and the scent of crushed leaves and old wood hits you like a wave. The woman behind the table doesn't look up, just gestures for you to sit. She doesn't ask what's wrong. She never does. She starts brewing tea without a word, choosing ingredients based on something only she understands. Intuition, or maybe a kind of magic no one dares call by name. You wait in silence until she hands you the cup. Drink all of it, she says, even the dregs. You do. And then, you ask the question you've been turning over in your mind since the man in the cloak left. Have you ever heard of a man who leaves gold behind, and then... She looks up sharply. And then the women disappear? You finish. She sets down the mortar in her hands. I have. You lean forward. Who is he? No one knows, she replies. But he's real, or real enough to be feared. You don't like that answer. Is it a curse? A disease? Something he carries? The herbalist stirs her mixture again. Some say he's death. Others say he's just a man with a taste for silence. I think he's both. You sit with that for a long moment. If he comes again, don't let him in. You nod, but you already know you will. If he comes, you'll open the door. That's the worst part of it. You can feel it already. The pull, like gravity. Later, you make your way back through the market. The crowds have thickened, full of heat and noise and the usual nonsense. A boy runs past you with a stolen apple. A fishmonger yells about the size of his eels. A woman in velvet, definitely slumming, haggles over a piece of jewellery you're fairly certain she doesn't need. You buy a handful of dried figs and eat them slowly on the edge of the fountain. You don't notice the man watching you until he's standing beside you. Not the cloaked one. This man is foreign, taller than most, with sun-dark skin and hair braided close to his scalp. He smiles at you, teeth white and wide. "You're the one who walked out on Master Renard last week," he says. You blink. "Excuse me?" He sits beside you like it's the most natural thing in the world. He liked you. Said you had eyes like prophecy. "Prophecy tends to go poorly," you mutter. "He wants to see you again." You shake your head. "I'm not interested." The man shrugs. "He'll come anyway." Then he stands and walks away. You throw the rest of the figs to the pigeons. Back at the house, Elise is weeping in the shared dressing room. Rosa is beside her, holding a cloth to her temple. You step inside and freeze. What happened? "She was grabbed in the alley," Rosa says. "Not hurt, but shaken. Her shift's torn and she lost a shoe." You move to Elise, crouch beside her. "Did you see who it was?" She shakes her head. "No, just hands. Strong. Smelled like cloves." You stiffen. The cloaked man smelled like cloves. Or something close. You look at Rosa. "Tell the madam." She won't care. Tell her anyway. That night the madam posts a boy near the alley entrance with a stick and a dagger. She calls it protection. You call it decoration, but it's something. Still, you sleep with your door locked. Just after midnight there's a soft knock. You sit up. You wait. One knock, then two. Then silence. You don't move. Eventually the footsteps fade. You lie awake until dawn. Historical fact. Many medieval herbalists acted as unofficial counsellors and healers for women, especially sex workers, providing both physical remedies and informal knowledge about city dangers. Fringe. Fact. Folk belief in travelling soul stealers, or night callers, was common in medieval Europe. Mysterious men who would visit, enchant, and somehow consume the essence of their victims. Scholarly debate. Whether such legends represented psychological trauma, proto-urban legends, or encoded warnings against certain kinds of men remains unresolved. But many scholars agree these myths served as cultural cautionary tales. The next afternoon drags like a limp leg. You try to sleep through it, but your body won't let you. Too tense, too raw, too aware. You lie under your thin sheet listening to the shouts from the street below, the occasional clatter of hooves on stone, the echo of some drunkard trying to remember the words to a hymn he's turned into something profoundly inappropriate. You close your eyes, open them, stare at the ceiling and trace the cracks again. That little one above the window looks like a wolf's jaw. It didn't used to. You're not sure what's changing, your eyes or the crack. Eventually the madam sends for you. No time for dinner, no chance to duck out the back and catch air. She taps her heel twice on your door, doesn't wait for a reply, and says simply, "Nobleman, be nice," which is code for expensive, moody, dangerous if offended. You throw on the red velvet gown with the gold laces, the one that fits tight through the waist and smells faintly of spiced wine no matter how many times you scrub it. It always makes you feel like someone else, someone fictional and silk-skinned, someone who might have once had her portrait painted. Downstairs he's already waiting, tall, broad-shouldered, hair like wet sand. He wears a padded doublet and carries himself like he's been trained to swing a sword but hasn't had to in years. His boots are too clean, and his eyes, green, glassy, skim the room without seeing it. He spots you and smiles like someone who's never heard no in his life. The madame says, "Sir Alaric of Vannes." He's passing through on his way to a wedding. You resist the urge to ask whether it's his own. You smile instead, bow slightly and offer your arm. He doesn't take it. Instead, he places a coin in your palm and walks ahead of you like he's leading a hunt. Upstairs, in the nicer room, he circles the space slowly, touching things. Your comb, a candle holder, the edge of the wash basin, as though trying to decide whether he finds them charming or offensive. "You ever dream of castles?" he asks suddenly. "Sometimes," you say. "But in my dreams they usually burn down." He laughs. Not genuinely. More like he's heard the right time to laugh and knows how to imitate it. He sits on the bed and begins removing his gloves, one finger at a time, precise and deliberate. "Do you want wine?" you offer. "No." He pats the space beside him. You move to sit and his hand closes over your wrist like a man reining in a horse. "You can call me Alaric," he says. "I don't like sir." "Noted." He smiles again. I had a dream about you last night. You blink. That's impressive. Considering we hadn't met yet, he leans in close. You were wearing this dress. You try not to stiffen. Instead, you tilt your head, feigning amusement. I guess you have prophetic taste. He doesn't answer. His hand slides from your wrist to your knee. You go still. Alaric talks as if you're not there. About his family, his training, the wars he's never fought in but likes to speak of with graphic detail. You let him. Men like this don't want company. They want an audience. Eventually he falls quiet, and his eyes soften in that way that means he's about to shift from words to hands. You brace yourself, but his next request catches you off guard. Pretend you're in love with me. You blink. Now? Now, he says. Like the whole world might end if you take another breath before obeying. So you do. You wrap your arms around his neck, touch his cheek, press your lips to his temple. You speak in the same voice you once used with a real lover, the one who gave you a seashell wrapped in wool and said he'd be back in a month. He never returned. You're everything, you whisper to Alaric. I dreamed of you long before I saw you. He shudders. You almost feel bad. He makes love like a man who has read about it in songs but never understood the rhythm. He's all pressure and misplaced tenderness. You let him move, let him finish. Let him lie beside you as if you both experienced something worth remembering. When he's asleep, you slip out of the bed and dress quickly. You check your arms for bruises, one on your bicep faint already, nothing that won't fade. Before you leave, you glance back at him. He's snoring softly, one hand curled like a child's against the pillow. You know this type. He'll fall in love with you for a week, maybe 2, and then disappear with a sword-shaped hole in his heart and a story about the woman he almost saved. You head downstairs and find the common room unusually quiet. Elise is at the window, watching the alley. You join her. What are you looking at? There was a man out there, she whispers, in a dark cloak. Your stomach drops. Did he knock? She shakes her head. He just stood there. Did you see his face? No, she says, but he was holding something. What? She hesitates. A necklace. You freeze. You buried Isabetta's necklace last spring after she lost it in the square, and someone pawned it to a vendor who tried to sell it back to her. The madame bought it out of pity. You wrapped it in linen and tucked it beneath the oak tree outside the city wall because Isabetta said she didn't want to wear anything touched by betrayal. You turn to Elise. Are you sure it was a necklace? She nods. You grab your cloak. Elise grabs your arm. Where are you going? To check the grave. You don't explain. You slip out into the cool night, heart hammering. The alley is empty, the street's quiet. The gate is still open this late, just wide enough to slip through. The walk to the oak tree feels longer than usual. You kneel at its roots and dig. The necklace is gone. Historical fact. In many medieval cities, prostitutes were often visited by minor nobles who saw themselves as gallant saviours, sometimes engaging in romantic or delusional attachments with the women they paid. Fringe fact. Some women in the trade believed burying personal objects, like jewellery or locks of hair, outside the city limits could sever unwanted emotional ties or protect them from spiritual possession. Scholarly debate. Scholars continue to study the complex psychological relationships between noble patrons and sex workers, especially how performance, affection, and power converge to create blurred lines of love and control. You sit back on your heels, fingers still caked in dirt, and stare at the hollow where the necklace used to be. The linen wrapping is there, torn, damp, and half buried. But the silver chain, the chipped sapphire bead, the tiny gold clasp shaped like a leaf, all of it is gone. The air around you suddenly feels thicker, like the earth is holding its breath. You close your fist around the torn cloth and slowly rise. Brushing your skirt off with a trembling hand, there's no sign of footprints in the soil, but you're not foolish enough to expect signs. Whoever took it didn't want to be seen, and that's far more terrifying than someone careless enough to leave tracks. You walk back to the city in silence. Even the usual nighttime sounds, the click of hooves, the echo of laughter, feel distant, muffled, as if the world is watching you from behind a curtain. The gate creaks as you slip through, and the guard, slumped against the wall with a jug in his hand, barely glances up. He doesn't notice the dirt on your hem, or the way you hold the linen scrap like it might vanish too. When you return to the house, Elise is still at the window. She turns at the sound of the door and runs to you. Well? It's gone, you say simply. Her face pales. Then, it was him. You nod, and she sinks into the chair beside the hearth like her legs have turned to wax. You don't sit. You just stand there, staring at the floorboards. You don't tell her that the necklace was once used in a warding ritual, that Isabetta had gone to the herbalist 3 times to bless it with herbs and prayer, that you buried it not just to rid her of grief, but to bind something closed. You don't know if you believe in magic, but sometimes belief isn't about truth. It's about not taking chances. You go upstairs and find the madam pacing outside the rooms. She stops when she sees you. Alaric left without a word, she says. You upset him? I gave him what he paid for, she huffs. He asked for a note, a letter from you. You blink. A letter? Something to remember you by, she says, smirking. I told him you weren't a poet. You shrug. I'm not. She raises an eyebrow. Maybe you should be. You keep attracting the theatrical types. You say nothing. She leans closer. Be careful. Men like that want to own what they can't afford. You nod once, then slip past her and into your room. It's not quiet long. Rosa knocks about 10 minutes later, ducking her head in with a strange expression. There's a bailiff downstairs, she whispers. Says he's here on business. You frown. Who's in trouble? Not trouble, she says. He wants a word. With you. That phrase sets your nerves crawling. You make your way downstairs, adjusting your sleeves, smoothing your face into polite blankness. The bailiff stands by the fire, helmet under his armour, eyes scanning the room with that bored detachment of a man who's seen too many dead bodies to be impressed by skin or silk. He turns when you approach. Madam, he says, not smiling. Bailiff. He gestures for you to sit. You don't. We had a report, he begins, of a woman matching your description speaking to a known vagrant outside the city walls last night. You blink. Vagrant? A man in dark clothing, not registered with any guild, untraceable. Possibly involved in several recent disappearances. Your stomach turns. You think I'm involved? He shrugs. We've had stranger arrangements. A few girls from across the bridge were found missing last month. Rooms untouched. Money left behind. Same type of man seen near each place. You think of the coins in your trunk, of the necklace, of the knock. I didn't speak to anyone, you lie. The bailiff watches you. He's no fool, but he's also not interested in pressing. He just wants to fill his ledger and move on. Well, he says, standing again, if you see him, let us know. And if you disappear, we'll assume it was voluntary. You smile sweetly. I'm not going anywhere. He doesn't answer, just tips his helmet and leaves. You climb the stairs again, slower this time. Every creak feels like a warning. In your room, you unlock the trunk and take out the pouch. The gold is still there. You spill it into your lap and examine the coins one by one. They're all from Venice, yes, but not current. Not exactly. A few bare markings from 2 decades ago, one even older, all in perfect condition, untouched, like they've never passed through a hand. Like they were minted yesterday in a city that no longer exists. You fold them back into the cloth and stare at the empty trunk for a long time. You think of Isabetta. You think of the knock at your door. You think of Elise, too green and too afraid. You think of the man who left without touching you, and the strange way he knew your name before you'd given it. You stand and pull on your cloak again. This time, you don't go to the herbalist or the market. You walk to the outskirts of the city, toward the old chapel no one uses anymore. It leans slightly to one side, roof half caved in, windows long gone. The walls are covered in ivy and bad memories. You push open the rusted door and step inside. It smells like mildew and smoke. There's someone already there, an old woman, sitting in the corner wrapped in layers of shawls and fur that don't match. She looks up when you enter, her eyes cloudy but sharp. You brought the coin, she says. You freeze. How do you... She nods toward your pocket. You smell of it. You step closer. Do you know what he is? She smiles, a mouth of broken teeth. He's not a man. Then what? He's what's left when names are forgotten, she whispers. He comes for those whose lives are already halfway erased. Who live in the corners of maps and memory, you swallow. He's killed women. No, she says. They went with him. Why? She shrugs. Some were tired. Some were curious. Some thought they were chosen. You feel your heart beat like a hammer in your throat. What happens if you don't go with him? She leans forward. Then you remember who you are, and that's harder. You don't reply. You turn and walk back into the night, and the knock comes again. Historical fact: medieval bailiffs were responsible for local law enforcement and often had informal arrangements with brothels, offering protection in exchange for coin or favours. Fringe fact: abandoned chapels were often repurposed as sites for unofficial rituals, folk healing, and whispered confessions, places both feared and respected by those on the edges of society. Scholarly debate: the symbolic role of gold in medieval ghost stories and urban folklore, whether as payment for silence, a marker of damnation, or the price of escape, remains a point of rich academic discussion. You don't answer the knock. Not at first. You lie there in the dark, eyes open, breath shallow, listening. One knock, then silence, then another, slower, more deliberate than last time. It's as though he knows you're there, knows you're awake, and is giving you time to consider. Just enough to make it feel like your choice. You pull the blanket up to your chin like that's going to help. Like linen ever stopped anything beyond cold. You think of the chapel, the old woman, the words she said like riddles. Some thought they were chosen. You wonder which kind you are. Tired, curious, chosen. None feel like an answer you want. The knock comes a third time. You rise. Your feet hit the cold floorboards, and you move slowly toward the door, each step deliberate. You pause with your hand on the handle, heart hammering like you've run 10 flights. This time, you don't open it. Instead, you press your palm flat against the wood. Not tonight, you whisper. The hallway beyond is silent. No footsteps, no creaking retreat, just stillness. And then, somehow even worse, a laugh. Low, quiet, almost amused. And then he's gone. You don't sleep after that. By dawn, your skin feels too tight. You boil water and scrub yourself head to toe, washing every part of you like you can cleanse away whatever he left behind. The soap burns a little in places it shouldn't, and you don't stop scrubbing until your arms ache. You dry yourself with your oldest linen and wrap your hair in a cloth. Outside, the sun is already climbing, casting a pale orange light over the rooftops. In the kitchen, Rosa is stirring the morning porridge. She gives you a look, not surprise, not concern. Just that quiet acknowledgement that passes between women who live in the same building but occupy different wars. Elise hasn't come down, she says. You pause. Since when? She never came back from her client last night. She had the clerk from the Northern District. Pale, boring, bad with coin, but harmless. You set your bowl down without touching it. Did the madam check? She says it's not her problem. She's probably just gone home with him. You know better. Elise doesn't go home with clients. She barely lets them kiss her without shaking. You nod once and leave your bowl behind. You knock on Elise's door. No answer. You try the handle. Locked. The rooms don't lock from the outside. You go to the madam's office. She's bent over her ledger, scribbling numbers that don't add up to what she says they do. She glances up, already annoyed. Elise hasn't come out, you say. Her door's locked. She probably left early. She never leaves early. The madam sighs like you're asking her to climb a mountain barefoot. She's not my child, she says. If she's missing by nightfall, I'll care. You don't wait. You go back to the door, this time with the spare key you know Rosa keeps hidden in her shoe. The lock clicks and you push the door open slowly, empty, but not undisturbed. The bed is still made, but her cloak is gone from the hook. Her boots are missing. There's a dent in the pillow, but the cover's straightened like someone wanted it to look untouched. You walk to her small chest, still locked. You check under the bed. Nothing. You check the windowsill. There's a scrap of parchment tucked beneath the corner. Barely held down by the edge of the frame. You pull it out. One word. Sorry. That's all. You sit on the edge of her bed and hold the note like it might explain itself if you stare long enough. You don't cry. You don't scream. You just feel the familiar weight settle into your stomach like a stone. Loss, but without confirmation. Gone, but not declared. And worse, part of you knows it wasn't the clerk. You return to your room and unwrap the pouch of coins. You lay them out in a line across your bed. 10 of them. Still perfect. Still too new. You take one and place it on your tongue. It tastes like metal, yes, but also something bitter underneath. Not poison, something older. You spit it into your hand and wipe your mouth. That afternoon, you visit the herbalist again. This time, she sees you and says nothing. She simply pours a cup of something dark and sets it on the table. You drink it in silence. "I need to know what I'm dealing with," you say when it's done. The herbalist looks at you. "You've felt it," she says. "Haven't you?" You nod. "Then you already know. He's not flesh, not fully." "What is he then?" She turns to her shelves, pulling down jars, whispering to herself. "He's drawn to endings, to women on the edge of something, girls who are halfway gone and haven't noticed yet. He offers escape. Or disappearance. Same thing," she says. You pull out one of the coins and place it on the table. She recoils. "Where did you—" "He left them." She stares at the coin like it's a snake. "You need to bury it." "I already buried something," you say. "He found it." She frowns. "Then he's marked you." "Can it be undone?" She doesn't answer right away. Instead, she pulls out a bundle of herbs tied with red thread. "Keep this near your bed," she says. "Don't break the thread. If he comes again, don't speak. Don't move. Don't open the door." You nod, clutching the bundle like it might protect more than your sleep. As you leave, she calls after you. "Not everyone he takes dies," she says. "Some are just never the same." You don't reply. That night, the house is too quiet. Rosa watches the hall like a cat at the edge of a forest. The madam drinks wine and counts silver. You eat nothing. You dress in plain linen. You place the herb bundle beneath your pillow and lie still. The knock comes at midnight. You do not move. You do not breathe. The handle turns, the door creaks, but nothing enters, and when morning comes, the door is closed. Historical fact. Medieval inns and brothels sometimes use protective charms, often herbs or iron tokens, hidden beneath beds or door frames to ward off evil spirits or night visitors. Fringe fact. Folklore across Europe includes legends of spirits or fae who would knock on doors at midnight, believed to target those with unsettled souls or unresolved grief. Scholarly debate. Scholars continue to analyse whether such myths were responses to unexplained disappearances, expressions of trauma, or metaphorical devices to discuss taboo topics like depression, suicide, or sexual violence. You spend the next morning like a ghost in your own body, drifting through familiar spaces, speaking only when spoken to, and keeping your hands busy so your mind doesn't wander where it wants to go. You help Rosa with her stays, sweep the front hallway, rinse the mugs left sticky with last night's wine, anything to avoid the weight in your chest. Elisa's door is still shut. The madam hasn't asked again. No one mentions her name, and that's the part that makes your stomach churn. Not the silence itself, but how easily everyone falls into it. You don't know if that's fear or survival, and you don't have the energy to untangle the difference. By midday, you're in the laundry room, scrubbing at a sheet that someone bled on. Maybe a girl, maybe a client, maybe both. When the sound of bootsteps in the corridor makes your pulse spike. You know that walk. Quick, nervous, purposeful. You rise, wipe your hands on your apron, and open the door just as he rounds the corner. It's him, the clerk. Short brown hair, ink-stained fingers, tunic wrinkled like he slept in it. He freezes when he sees you, like he wasn't expecting anyone to catch him. His face is pale, but his eyes are wide and sharp with panic. You say, stepping into the hall. "Where's Elise?" He shakes his head too fast, swallows. I don't know. I swear." "She left with you?" "No," he stammers. "She never came. I waited. The madame said she was delayed. I left after an hour. Alone." You search his face, but he looks genuinely terrified. Not guilty, scared. Like someone who brushed against something too cold to name. "She's gone," you say flatly. He flinches. I never even saw her." You lean in closer. "Did anyone follow you home?" He pauses, thinks, nods slowly. "Someone stood across the street. Dark cloak, just watching." That's all you need to hear. You grab your shawl from the hook and storm past him, ignoring the madam's call from the common room. You push through the front door and into the street, lungs tight, vision sharp. You don't know where you're going yet, but you know you can't sit in that house another minute pretending you're not being hunted. You walk fast, turning corner after corner, letting instinct pull you. You pass the baker, the apothecary, the alley where Isabetta once kissed a boy from the blacksmith's yard. You turn right at the faded statue of St. Ulrich and left again when the cobblestones start to slope toward the water. Eventually your feet take you to the cathedral steps, not for prayer, but because it's the one place you haven't seen him near. Not yet. You sit on the lowest step and breathe. The The stone beneath you is cold, even in the sun. Across the square, market stalls are being dismantled. A child cries. A bell rings somewhere above your head, its echo soft and slow. You close your eyes and imagine you're anyone else. Someone simple, someone safe. A seamstress, maybe, with tired hands and a garden out back, or a widow who sings lullabies to her cat. Someone no one watches, someone no one knocks for. Funny, a voice says beside you. You open your eyes slowly. It's him, not the cloaked man, the other one. The painter, the boy from weeks ago, the nervous one with the soft hands and hopeful eyes. He's holding a loaf of bread and a bag of apples like he's just come from market. His tunic is patched now, and his curls fall messily over his brow. I thought I'd find you here, he says. You raise an eyebrow. You stalking me? No, he says, a little too quickly, then adds, maybe. You gesture to the spot beside you. He sits. You look like hell, he says. You smile grimly. That's generous. He tears a piece of bread and hands it to you. You take it. I wanted to come back, he says after a moment, but I thought maybe I shouldn't. Probably wise, you murmur. He glances at you sideways. You ever think about leaving? All the time. What stops you? You stare straight ahead. The not knowing where I'd land. He nods. That's the scary part, isn't it? Jumping. No, you say. The scary part is landing in the same kind of trap. Just with different wallpaper. He's quiet for a while. Then carefully he reaches into his bag and pulls out a folded square of parchment. I drew this after I met you. You hesitate, then unfold it. It's your face, softer than it is now, less tired. The version of you he saw when you were still pretending that night. There's a kindness in the drawing that feels painful to look at. You made me beautiful, you say. I didn't have to try hard. You hand it back. Keep it. I don't want to fall in love with the woman in the picture. He takes it, but doesn't smile. I'm leaving the city, he says. There's a patron in Saint-Amand who wants church murals done. I could use help. You snort. You want a prostitute as an assistant? He shrugs. You have hands. You're good with faces. And I don't think I've ever met someone who sees more than you do. You stare at him. Then you laugh. Loud. Hard. It's the first time in days. You're insane, you say. Maybe, he agrees. You don't give him an answer. Just stand, brush off your skirt, and hand him the rest of the bread. Back at the house, the madame is fuming. Where were you? She demands. You had a client waiting, a patron. He's still here. You frown. What client? She waves you toward the parlour. You enter, and your blood turns to ice. It's him, the cloaked man, sitting calmly in the chair near the hearth, a wine glass untouched in his hand. The light flickers strangely off his skin, like it can't decide whether to show you his face. You came, he says. Your voice catches. I didn't ask you to. I go where I'm wanted. You shake your head. Not by me. He stands. Liar. You open your mouth to shout for the madam, but she's already there and smiling. Good, she says. You've met. You look at her. What? She gestures to him. He's bought your contract. The world shifts. What? Paid in full, she says. He owns your time now. You take a step back. That's not possible. I didn't agree. Doesn't matter, the madam says. The coin spoke for you. You stare at her, then at him, and he smiles. Historical fact. In some medieval brothels, women were legally bound under contracts, which patrons or wealthy men could buy out in exchange for exclusive rights to their time, a transaction that often resembled ownership more than employment. Fringe fact. Folklore in several regions described spirits or demons who could use gold to purchase a soul, not through death, but by binding a person's will to their own, bypassing consent entirely. Scholarly debate. Some scholars argue that contractual buyouts in sex work allowed for upward mobility or safety, while others note these arrangements often led to increased isolation and exploitation, especially for young or vulnerable women. You don't scream, you don't lunge, you don't cry. You just stand there as the silence thickens around you, swallowing the hearth's crackle, the clink of coins, the clatter of feet in rooms above. The man in the cloak, your new patron apparently, smiles with that patient knowing expression, like he's watching you process a riddle you'll never solve. The madame leans against the doorframe, arms crossed, pleased with herself. You can't do this, you say finally. Not loud, but steady. I never agreed, the madam shrugs. You've been talking about leaving for weeks. Well, now you're leaving. What difference does it make who's holding the reins? Your stomach churns. The difference is that I'm not a mule, she snorts. You sold your choices the day you walked through my door. All I did was cash them in. You turn to him. Is this what you do? Buy women like horses? His smile doesn't falter. I make investments. You're a rare one. The city forgets its women too quickly. But I remember. The way he says it sends a chill down your spine. Not because of the words, but the certainty, the weight, like he's speaking from a place where time doesn't move the way it does here. You glance back at the madam, return his coin. Her smile tightens. It's spent. You burned through that much already. Business has been slow. You step away from both of them, your breath coming faster now. You think of Elise, of Isabetta, of the necklace, the coins, of all the women who simply stopped being mentioned. There's a hole in this city, and he stands in the centre of it, calm as a man waiting for tea. I'm not going anywhere with you, you say to him. He nods slowly as if indulging you. Not tonight, no, but soon. And then, with a polite nod to the madam, he walks past you and out the door. No force, no final word, just the sound of his boots fading into the street. You spin on the madam. What is he? She stiffens. He's a paying man. That's all I need to know. No, you say, stepping toward her. You know something. She stares at you, and for the first time in a long time you see fear in her face. There's old magic in this city, she says finally. Older than churches, older than the stones. Sometimes it wears a cloak, sometimes it carries gold. Either way, it always finds what it's looking for. Which is what? She doesn't answer. You don't push her. Not because you're afraid of the answer, but because deep down, you already know. And because you're thinking of that moment, when the door creaked open and nothing walked in. When the coins arrived. When your name was spoken by someone you'd never met. That night, you sit in your room surrounded by silence and choices that no longer feel like your own. You unpack your trunk piece by piece. A comb, a shawl, the drawing from the painter boy, a worn pair of gloves, the pouch of coins. You place them all out in front of you as if you're laying out a life, trying to decide what pieces are yours and what pieces have been claimed. You spend hours repacking, then unpacking again. You keep 3 dresses, the necklace you once found buried near the old tannery, a tiny vial of oil that smells like cloves, the drawing, a piece of twine, a knife you've never used but always kept. You leave the rest. At dawn, you go to the market and speak to a washerwoman who owes you a favour. She finds you a boy with a cart and a quiet nature. He agrees to carry your things to the painter's district for half a copper. You don't say goodbye to Rosa. You don't tell the madam. You just leave. You find the painter boy. Henri, he tells you when you ask. Still in the same workshop he mentioned. It's small, full of canvas and sunlight and the scent of crushed pigment. He's shocked to see you. He nearly drops a jar of ochre. You came. I'm not staying long, he nods. You can stay as long as you like. You don't smile, but you feel something close, like breath returning to lungs. Over the next few days you learn how to mix paint, how to stretch canvas, how to trace outlines with charcoal. It's quiet work and your hands ache, but in a good way, a real way. You rise early and go to bed sore, not from men but from labour. You begin to sketch in the margins of his parchment, small things, apples, a face, a doorway you once passed in Avignon. Henri treats you like an equal, like someone whole. He doesn't ask about your past, doesn't flinch when you speak of it, but it doesn't last. On the 5th night, you wake with the feeling of being watched. You sit up, heart pounding. The room is empty, but the window is open. You close it, lock it, and spend the rest of the night curled in the corner, knife in hand. The next day you find a mark on the doorframe, a symbol carved carefully into the wood. You recognise it. It was on the coin, on the necklace clasp, on the back of Elise's mirror. You paint over it, and you pack again. Henri watches you with wide eyes. You're leaving? I have to. I can come with you. No, you say, more sharply than you mean. You're not marked. He frowns. Marked? But you're already gone. Back on the street you head to the one person who hasn't lied to you, the herbalist. When you arrive, her shop is in disarray. Shelves knocked over, dried herbs scattered like confetti. No blood, no body, just silence. You leave with nothing but a name scrawled in the dirt near her table, Ghislaine. The name of a woman who disappeared last winter. A woman no one talks about now. You return to the brothel that night. The madam is gone. The house is empty. The rooms are silent. You find Ross's hair comb on the stairs, Elise's shoes by the door, Isabetta's scarf in the kitchen, but no voices, no sounds, just you and the man waiting in your room. Historical fact. Some women in medieval Europe fled brothels and tried to start new lives as servants, artists or wives, but many were tracked, coerced, or even kidnapped back into sex work, especially if they owed debts or were under contract. Fringe fact. In certain folk tales, to be marked meant bearing a symbol, curse, or invisible wound that would ensure the spirit world, or death itself, could always find you, no matter where you ran. Scholarly debate. Medieval records show tension between official legal structures and unwritten social power. Some brothel owners and city officials conspired to track down escaped sex workers, while others quietly allowed them to vanish and start anew. He's sitting on your bed like he owns it. One leg crossed over the other, cloak folded neatly beside him, boots clean. He doesn't smile. He doesn't blink. He just watches you walk into your old room like it's the most natural thing in the world, as though this is your place, and he's been waiting in it since time was born. Where is everyone? You ask. He tilts his head slightly like a bird regarding a dying thing. Gone. Gone where? He raises his eyebrows. Does it matter? You want to scream. You want to throw something. But what would that do, really? He wouldn't flinch. He wouldn't bleed. He'd probably just catch it mid-air and thank you for the entertainment. I told you I wasn't going with you. And yet here you are, he says softly. You step further into the room, fists clenched, teeth grinding. I came back to find them. They're not yours to find. I worked with them. I lived with them. You survived with them, he corrects. But they belong to the city, and the city forgets fast. You shake your head. You took them. No, he says, rising. I offered. And they walked. You want to argue, but your words catch like fishhooks in your throat. What are you? You ask. He walks to the window, pushing it open with one hand. The air that drifts in is thick with the scent of ash and violets. I am choice and consequence, and the part of the world people like to ignore. That's not an answer, isn't it? He turns to face you fully. The light from the street outside hits his face, and for the first time, you see something beneath the surface, something ancient. Not a man, not a ghost, but something in between. Like the story of a person that was whispered so many times, it became real. His face is 100 faces, flickering in and out of shadow. A lover, a merchant, a soldier, a priest. All the same, all shifting behind the skin. I make offers, he says, that's all. And some people find me when they're ready. Ready for what? To stop choosing. You feel sick. I never said yes, he steps toward you. No, but you keep answering the knock. You take a step back. You could have run, he continues. You could have stayed with the painter, left the coins, buried the drawing. You could have locked every door and lit every candle, but you didn't. You followed me. I follow no one, he says. You open the door. You don't know what frightens you more, how calm he is, or how calm you are. Like something inside you has accepted the shape of this moment. Like the edges of your fear have been worn smooth over time. I want them back, you whisper. Elise, Isabetta, the herbalist, Rosa. He steps closer. No, you say louder. I want them back. He shakes his head slowly. They were already fading. I didn't push them. I caught them. You're shaking now. You can feel your knees trembling beneath your skirts. What happens if I say no again? He sighs. Not in frustration, but like someone listening to a song they've heard too many times. Then you go on surviving, he says. You spend the rest of your life watching windows, hearing knocks, carrying the weight of names that no one else remembers. And if I say yes, he looks at you. You join the rest. You vanish, but you stop aching. You take a shaky breath. I'm not ready. He nods once. That's the first honest thing you've said. Then he turns, steps through the window and disappears into the night. You fall to the floor like something cut your strings. You don't cry. You don't move. You just sit there, surrounded by dust and memory. It takes hours before you finally stand. The air in the house is thick, still. You walk from room to room, opening windows, letting in breeze, light, sound, something to prove the world hasn't ended. In the dressing room, you find Elise's comb. You tuck it into your pocket. In the laundry room, Isabetta's shift hangs forgotten. You fold it. In Rosa's drawer, a half-finished letter, never sent. You place it with the rest. Then, you write. Not goodbye, not a confession. A list. Names, faces, memories. You place it in the trunk, atop the gold coins. You lock it, and then you walk out the front door. You don't know where you're going. Maybe back to Henri. Maybe away from the city altogether. Maybe to a place where no one knows your name and you can remember what it feels like to be invisible without disappearing. As you reach the city gate, a storm gathers behind you. Rain begins to fall, soft at first, then harder. You don't stop walking. Not this time. Historical fact. Many medieval women who escaped sex work sought refuge under assumed names in smaller villages, or entered religious life, though both paths carried heavy risks of exposure or poverty. Fringe fact. In certain regions, it was believed that people who regularly heard knocks with no source were being courted by spirits of the forgotten, souls who wanted companionship in the afterlife. Scholarly debate. There is ongoing discussion about how folklore and trauma intersect, particularly how stories of spirits claiming the marginalised might reflect real historical patterns of exploitation, loss, and psychological coping. Rain follows you like a dog that's chosen you, relentless and faithful. It soaks through your cloak, into your boots, down the back of your neck where your scarf doesn't quite reach. You don't care. You let it happen. Let it wash the dust from your hair, the stink of the brothel from your skin, the weight of everything you can't put a name to. Water always finds a way in, and you're too tired to patch the leaks. You walk until the city thins, until the streets widen, until cobbles give way to patches of grass clawing their way through stone. You pass 3 drunk men singing a hymn in perfect harmony, a cart stuck in the mud with a donkey that looks as miserable as you feel, and a boy carving symbols into a fence post with a spoon. None of them look at you. You could be missed. You reach the edge of the southern quarter just before the storm breaks for real. The theatre is there, a crumbling structure of cracked plaster and half-shuttered windows surrounded by old iron lamps with no oil left in them. It used to be grand. Still is, if you squint hard enough and ignore the damp patches on the ceiling and the way the floorboards sag like a weary body. The players who work there live in the back rooms and eat whatever scraps the audience throws at them. They're odd, loud, filthy, brilliant people. You've always liked them. You knock 3 times on the stage door. No answer. You knock again. Finally a shuffling sound, a muttered curse, and the door opens to reveal Gregor, the stage hand with more beard than face. He blinks at you once, twice, then steps aside without a word. The inside smells like wood smoke, grease paint, and too many old shoes. You follow Gregor down a narrow hallway until it opens into the backstage area. Chaos, as always. Costumes hanging like ghosts, a cracked mirror propped on a crate, someone's shirt drying on a spear. Lena, the lead actress, is sprawled across a chaise lounge in the centre, sipping wine from a cracked cup and smearing rouge onto her cheeks without a mirror. Well, well, she drawls when she sees you. The city's favourite ghost returns. I need a place to rest, you say. Just for a night. She lifts one thin eyebrow. You bring stories? Too many. Then you've earned a chair and some bad wine. Welcome home. You sit in a wooden chair with a broken leg and accept the cup Gregor hands you. It tastes like vinegar and secrets. You drain it in 2 swallows. Lena watches you. You look like someone's dream after it got stepped on. You give her a tired smile. That's generous. A boy with a lute strums a few notes and a girl behind him starts humming, low and slow. The mood shifts. The storm outside drums against the windows like an impatient god. Someone lights a lantern and the shadows dance. Lena gestures to you. Tell us a tale. You exhale and lean forward, setting the cup aside. You start slow, about the brothel, the city, the coin. You change the names, you soften the edges. You don't speak of the knocks yet or the cloak or the disappearing, but they feel it in your voice. The room goes still. Someone asks, "Did he love you?" You shake your head. He didn't want to. He wanted to keep. There's a long silence. Then Lena says, "That sounds like most of the men I've met." You sleep that night in a hammock above the costume room, wrapped in an old tapestry and dreaming of things with too many eyes. You wake before dawn, heart pounding, breath shallow. You sit up, listening. No knock, not yet. But it's coming. You know it. You sneak out before the rest are awake. You leave a note for Lena. "Thank you." Keep the wine hidden next time. She'll laugh when she reads it. She'll pretend not to worry. She'll still light a candle for you, even if she won't admit it. You walk again. South, toward the river. The water is high, muddy, fast. A barge creaks nearby, moored to a stone post wrapped in weeds. A woman with arms like tree trunks is loading it with crates. She doesn't look at you. You climb aboard and sit on a sack of grain. She finally speaks. "You running?" "Walking," you say. She nods. "Good." Running shows fear. Walking shows choice. You stay silent. She pulls in the rope, and the barge eases into the current. The city fades behind you. The towers, the rooftops, the chapel, the brothel. You don't look back. The barge rocks gently as it floats downstream. Trees line the banks like sentinels. Birds call overhead. The world widens, but it doesn't quiet. In your pocket, the coin pulses with warmth. You pull it out. It's changed. The symbol etched into its edge has deepened, no longer shallow engraving, but cut through all the way. A hole now, small, clean, like an eye. You drop it into the water. It floats. It shouldn't, but it does. It spins once, twice, and then disappears beneath the surface. The woman rowing doesn't speak. She's seen worse, probably. Or maybe she's seen him. That night, you sleep on the deck, wrapped in an oilcloth, beneath stars that don't look familiar anymore. The wind whispers strange names. At midnight, the boat rocks harder than usual. You wake. The lantern swings once on its hook. You sit up. The world is still. Too still. You rise and walk to the bow. He's standing on the riverbank. He's not waving. He's just there. Cloak moving in wind you can't feel. And though you're yards away, you hear him speak. Not with sound, with memory. Keep walking then. And then he vanishes. You don't sleep the rest of the night. Historical fact. Travelling theatre troupes were a sanctuary for many outcasts, including former prostitutes, runaway servants and debtors, offering shelter in exchange for labour, talent, or simply secrecy. Fringe fact. Folklore often attributes supernatural traits to cursed coins. Some were said to float, refuse to be melted, or always return to the pocket of their original bearer. Scholarly debate. The phenomenon of supernatural debt appears in both religious texts and folklore, where accepting gifts or payments from mysterious strangers results in long-term binding consequences that mimic financial bondage or spiritual enslavement. You leave the river at dawn, feet soaked, cloak heavier with each step. The boatwoman says nothing when you step off. She just nods once, respect or farewell, you're not sure, and pushes the barge back into the current, disappearing into the rising mist. You don't ask her name. She doesn't ask yours. That's how it works with people like you. Names are doors, and doors are dangerous. The road ahead is little more than a path cut through the underbrush, wet and choked with roots. It leads you east, toward a village you don't know the name of, where the houses are fewer and the eyes linger longer when strangers pass. You keep your head down and your hands tucked into your sleeves. No one offers help. No one offers harm either. Just silence and the sound of chickens clucking behind crooked fences. You find shelter behind a crumbling chapel that smells of wet stone and mice. A boy no older than 10 brings you a crust of bread in exchange for a coin. Not one of his coins, those you left in a jar floating downstream. This one is plain, worn thin from years of honest hands. You give it freely. It feels like proof you still exist in the world the way others do. That night, it happens again. You wake in the middle of sleep, heart pounding, skin damp, the pressure of a presence just outside your vision. But this time, no knock, no voice, just the sound of something dragging across stone, slow, like a finger tracing a line. You crawl to the edge of the ruined wall and peer into the dark. There, half hidden by fog, stands a figure. Not cloaked, not faceless. A woman, hair matted, dress torn, mouth slack with sleep, or something deeper. She walks with jerking, stumbling steps, like a marionette guided by uncertain strings. You watch her for a full minute before she turns her head. You see the mark on her cheek, one you've seen before, on Elise's mirror, on the coin, on the doorframe in Henri's workshop. Your breath catches. "Hello?" you call out. She freezes. Then she begins to laugh. Not joy, not even madness, just the sound of something remembering what a voice feels like. It rattles out of her in gasps, and then she runs, straight into the trees, disappearing without a trace. You don't sleep again. In the morning you press on. The next village is barely more than a cluster of huts. A woman with a lazy eye offers you a job, sweeping her barn, feeding her goats. In exchange, she gives you a place to sleep. A wooden loft, dry and warm, filled with the smell of hay and animals and things that aren't quite unpleasant, but certainly aren't clean. You take it. It's the first place that feels solid in days. You stay there a week. 7 days of goat dung, cracked hands, and no visitors. No knocks. No cloaked men. No laughing women in the dark. And then, on the 8th day, he returns. Not in person, in conversation. You're helping the village healer grind herbs when she glances at the scar on your wrist and says, "You've been marked." You go still. "By whom?" you ask carefully. She looks at you like you're stupid. "The one with the gold." You nod slowly. "You've seen him?" Everyone's seen him. Once, if they've been close enough to the edge. "The edge of what?" she shrugs. Whatever cliff they were standing on. You look down at the bundle of dried herbs in your hand. "And what happens if you fall?" She pauses. Then you stop asking questions. That night, you find another coin beneath your blanket. Just one. On its surface, a small engraving. Not the symbol this time, a face. Yours. You don't scream. You walk outside into the wind and throw the coin into the forest. You don't wait to hear it land. You pack that night. The woman with the goats doesn't stop you. She watches you from her doorstep, wrapped in wool, eyes knowing. "You can't outrun him forever," she says. "I don't need forever. Just long enough." Long enough for what? You don't answer. You walk until the moon is high and your feet blister. At the edge of the forest you find a burned-out cottage. The roof is collapsed, the stones scorched black, but the hearth is still whole. You sit beside it and make a small fire. You draw the mark in the ash, then smear it out. Again, again, and again. Until the sky lightens. You don't know how long you'll keep moving. Maybe until your body fails. Maybe until you find a village that's never heard of gold that floats or girls who vanish without trace. Maybe you'll become one of those stories yourself, a woman in red who walks at night, never stops, never stays. But for now, you rest. And when the knock comes again, this time at your mind, not your door, you do something different. You answer, not with words, with memory. You remember Isabetta's laugh, Elise's fear, Rosa's humming, the herbalist's bitter tea, Henri's drawing, the scent of the sea on a night long gone. You flood him with it. The presence recoils, not completely, but enough. And then, for the first time in weeks, you feel alone. You sleep like a stone. In the morning your limbs are sore, but your heart is quiet. You pack again, one step, then another. You whisper to yourself, "I was never yours." And somewhere behind the trees something listens. And does not knock. Historical fact. In rural medieval Europe, burned-out cottages and abandoned homes were often avoided or feared, believed to be cursed or haunted, yet many wanderers and fugitives used them as shelters out of necessity. Fringe fact, some traditions taught that repeating an unwanted symbol and then destroying it, especially with natural elements like ash or water, could break spiritual claims or bindings. Scholarly debate. Scholars of medieval belief systems debate the nature of resistance rituals used by marginalised people, whether they had any actual religious or protective power, or simply served as psychological self-defence in otherwise powerless situations. The road beneath your boots turns from mud to gravel, then to the fine pale dust of forgotten places. You walk until your breath finds its rhythm again, until the ache in your thighs becomes background noise, until you can hear your own thoughts without flinching. The land changes as you go. Thicker trees, mossy ground, fewer voices. You pass an abandoned mill, its wheel frozen mid-turn, and a scarecrow missing its head. There's a house with no roof but flowers blooming through the floor. No one waves, no one follows. It's as though you've slipped into a part of the world that's in hiding, same as you. You spend your nights in dry ditches or beneath low-hanging branches, lighting no fires, making no marks. And still, somehow, he finds you. Not as a shape this time, but in the things around you. The way a crow watches too long. The way a puddle reflects someone who isn't there. The way your dreams shift and warp until you wake gasping, convinced you've agreed to something terrible. You try not to sleep. But exhaustion is its own kind of hunger. Eventually it eats through every wall. It's near the border to Langres where you stumble upon a convent. Built of grey stone, the place leans slightly, like time has pushed on it one too many winters. The sisters there wear brown wool and speak with careful, measured voices. When you ask for shelter, they look at your boots first, worn down to nearly nothing, and then your face, which you know must look like some weather-worn statue, chipped and watchful. You'll do chores, the tallest says. You'll rise early. I don't mind, you say. They give you a bed in the attic, a straw mattress and a candle stub. No lock on the door, but it's quiet and the walls feel thick like they've absorbed too many prayers to let anything unholy slip through. You scrub floors, you milk goats, you help wash linens that are stiff with winter cold and cracked hands. No one asks your name, no one asks your past. They call you the Wanderer, and you're fine with that. On the third night, you sleep without dreaming. On the fourth, you hear a knock, but it's just Sister Cecile needing help with the firewood. You begin to believe you found it. Not peace, but a pause, a space between breaths. And then one morning, you wake to find a flower on your pillow, a violet, fresh, dewy, out of season. Your fingers shake as you pick it up. Downstairs, the sisters are already preparing the altar. Bread, wine, song. You crush the flower in your fist and toss it into the stove. You say nothing. But that night, you stay awake, not hiding, waiting. And just before dawn it happens. Not a knock, a whisper. Right beside your ear, like breath. Come home. You stand. You step outside barefoot, the stone floor biting at your soles. The convent yard is still, no shadows, no wind, and there he is, sitting on the edge of the well as if he's been there all along, legs crossed, hands clasped, cloak dark as morning. Have you seen enough? He asks. You don't answer. You tried the woods, the river, the painter, the prayers, and yet here you are. You nod slowly. Here I am, he tilts his head. And? I'm still me. He smiles faintly. But for how much longer? You walk closer. I know what you are now, you say. Do you? You're a choice, a way out, a letting go. He shrugs. Something like that. But there's no peace in it. No, he agrees. Just stillness. You breathe in deeply. The scent of violets lingers in the air. I don't want to vanish, he nods, like he's heard that before. Maybe from Elise, maybe from Isabetta. But you want to stop hurting. That hits something deep. Not like this, you say. Not with forgetting. You pause. What happens to them, the others? He's quiet. They become untethered, he says finally. They drift. Are they dead? No. Are they free? He hesitates. No. You feel your throat tighten. Then what's the point? He stands now, slowly, carefully. They chose it, he says. And if I don't? You keep running, keep hurting, keep choosing. I want to keep choosing, you snap, even though your body says otherwise. Even though your bones ache from every step you've taken away from him. Even though part of you wants so badly to rest your head against his chest and disappear. He smiles, this time with something like sorrow. You've always been stubborn, he says. You don't know me. I've known you since your first breath. He steps closer, reaches out. You flinch. But he doesn't touch you. He places something on the ground. A mirror, cracked down the middle. Look, he says. You do. In it, your face looks older, worn, but whole. You're still here, he says. You can walk away again. I won't stop you. You wait for the trick. None comes. And that terrifies you most of all. You look up. He's already gone. No sound, no footsteps. Just gone. You pick up the mirror. The crack runs right through your eyes. You carry it back inside, hide it beneath your mattress. The sisters never ask. You stay another week. But you know it's not your place. You leave quietly, one morning before the bell rings. Your steps feel heavier. But yours. Historical fact. Some medieval convents accepted former prostitutes into their communities, particularly those seeking penance. However, they were often restricted in status. barred from full vows or positions of leadership. Fringe fact: in certain folk traditions, violets were believed to mark the presence of spirits or the dead, especially when they appeared out of season or in unexpected places. Scholarly debate. Scholars continue to examine how medieval religious institutions handled women considered fallen, debating whether these shelters were acts of compassion or mechanisms of control disguised as sanctuary. The world feels quieter after the convent, not in the way of peace, but in the way a storm quiets just before it circles back to tear the roof off. You walk again through open fields where mist clings to your ankles, past crumbling mile markers that no one uses anymore, along stretches of road so silent you begin to forget your own name. Sometimes that's a relief. Other times it feels like losing something vital, like a last match going out in a snowstorm. You begin to speak aloud just to hear yourself. "My name is," you say, again and again. But the name doesn't land right anymore. It's become too tangled with things you didn't choose. A profession, a house, a man who never said your name once but still spoke like he owned it. You pass a village and don't stop. A small hamlet tucked into the curve of a hill, smoke rising from stone chimneys, goats scattered like pebbles across the slope. A woman waves to you. You nod but keep walking. You've learned now, safety is not the same as stillness, and smiles are just another version of the knock. That night you find a patch of woods behind a half-collapsed barn. You nest in the hay, wrapped in your cloak, and watch the moon rise through a lattice of dead branches. Your body aches in quiet, persistent ways. A shoulder that won't stop clicking, a blister on your heel that's never fully healed, hunger that flutters and fades and returns with a vengeance every other morning. Sleep comes in broken pieces. You dream of rooms that don't have walls, of voices that echo after the speaker has vanished, of a face in the dark, not his, but your own, older, harder, watching you from a mirror that breathes. You wake to frost on your lashes, and beside you, pressed gently into the hay, is a dried violet. You don't scream, you don't flinch. You pick it up and crush it in your fist. You keep walking. Eventually the land changes. Hills roll into sharp crags. Pines replace oaks. The air grows colder, cleaner. You reach the outskirts of a mountain village called Epin, the kind of place that seems folded into the world like a secret. The people there don't speak quickly. Their eyes are sharp but not unkind. They ask no questions when you offer to work. You find a place sweeping floors at the bakery. It smells like cinnamon and yeast and hearth smoke. You sleep in the attic above the ovens, and for the first time in weeks, you're warm without fear. The baker, Etienne, is a man of few words. Big hands, wide shoulders, a voice like gravel soaked in milk. He doesn't look at you the way men usually do. When he catches you staring out the window too long, he simply nods once and says, "That road doesn't need you today." You stay a month. Your hands learn dough. Your body learns stillness again. You begin to hum. You begin to breathe. And then, one morning, there's a package at the door, wrapped in soft cloth. No name. You open it slowly. Inside, a coin. Not gold, not his, but silver, worn, plain, and a scrap of parchment. One word, return. You carry it back upstairs, sit with it in your lap for hours. Etienne says nothing, just leaves extra bread on the table. You don't answer the note, you burn the cloth, keep the coin. You think about returning to Henri, to the painter with the shy eyes and charcoal fingers, but you don't know if he's still there, if the knock found him too. You dream of him sometimes, lost in a sea of faces without mouths, trying to paint with no hands. You make a promise to yourself. If you make it through the next month, you'll go find him. But the next month doesn't wait. On the third day, you wake to a child crying in the street. You run outside and find her, no older than 8, barefoot, nightgown soaked through, shivering. She's trying to speak, but her teeth chatter too hard. You kneel. "Where are your parents?" She points down the road. "They wouldn't wake up." The villagers gather slowly. 2 men go to check. When they return, their faces are pale. "They're gone," one says. No signs of struggle, no wounds, just gone. Eyes open, cold. You know that feeling, that stillness. You step away. That night, you sleep with the mirror under your pillow again. You trace the crack before closing your eyes. You say your name again. Not just your name, all the names you can remember. Isabetta, Elise, Rosa, Ghislaine, the herbalist, the woman in the barn, the girl who ran laughing into the woods. You speak them like a spell. The knock comes, not on your door, on your mind. This time you open it, and you see him. Not across a room, inside you. A shape formed of every time you said yes when you wanted to say no. Every moment you smiled to make someone else comfortable. Every time you softened a truth that clawed at your throat. He's built of your compromises, your silences. He grins, but this time you don't flinch. You step forward, and you speak. I am not yours, he tilts his head. I never was. The grin wavers. I see you. I name you. You're not a god. You're just what we make in the dark when we forget we have a voice. You open your eyes, and he is gone. No shadow in the corner. No flour on the bed, just frost melting on the glass. Etienne is downstairs kneading dough when you enter. You take off your apron. I have to go, you say. He nods. I figured. He hands you a satchel, bread, a blanket, a new pair of boots. You pause at the door. Why help me? He shrugs. Some of us remember what forgetting feels like. You leave before you cry. You head east, back toward Henri, back toward answers, back toward yourself. Historical fact. Some mountain villages in medieval Europe became sanctuaries for those fleeing legal persecution or spiritual crises, often due to their remoteness and self-contained cultures. Fringe fact. In certain folk belief systems, speaking the true names of the dead or the forgotten was thought to protect the living from restless spirits, anchoring memory and warding off possession. Scholarly debate. The psychological role of naming and storytelling in medieval trauma recovery is debated, especially among scholars who explore how oral histories and naming rituals functioned as acts of agency for women who lacked legal power. The road back to the painter's district feels different this time, not because it's shorter, but because your spine holds straighter. The sky's grey above you, heavy with unshed snow, but you walk like the cold can't quite reach your centre anymore. Something has changed in you, quiet and sturdy. You feel it in the soles of your feet and in the way you stop flinching at the sound of a door creaking, or footsteps behind you, or the wind whispering your name like a lost thing. You reach the outer edges of the city by nightfall, when the gates are open only for carts bearing goods or guards returning from patrol. You slip in with a fishmonger who smells like rotted scales and curses the mud at every step. He barely notices you. That suits you fine. The city hasn't changed, but it looks smaller now. The towers less grand, the people less tall. The brothel is still there, of course. Its shutters newly painted, a fresh girl posted at the door in a bright red dress. She's younger than Elise was. Or maybe she just hasn't learned to wear fear behind her eyes yet. You don't go near it. Instead, you head straight for the little workshop at the edge of the painter's square, tucked between a candlemaker and a cooper's guild house. You knock once, gently. The door opens before your knuckles hit again. It's Henri. His eyes are wide and then narrowed, and then soft. He looks thinner than before and older, but not broken, not gone. He doesn't ask where you've been. He just steps aside to let you in. The workshop smells the same. Oil paint, sawdust, warm linen. The canvases have multiplied, stacked in the corners, draped in cloth. You see a half-finished mural across the far wall, a woman standing barefoot in a field of stars, her eyes closed, her arms lifted like she's remembering how to fly. You stayed, you say softly. Didn't have anywhere else to go, he says. You smile just a little. He watches you for a long moment. You look changed. I am. He nods, doesn't push. You sleep in the corner that night wrapped in a blanket that smells faintly of lavender. There's no knocking, no whispering. Just dreams of brushes moving across canvas and hands dipped in colour. In the morning he makes tea. You sip it slowly. He finally asks, "Will you tell me what happened?" You don't answer with words. Not yet. You pick up one of his charcoal sticks, the soft ones you liked before, and begin to draw. Not a self-portrait, not a symbol. Faces, all of them, one by one. Isabetta's laugh, Elise's soft gaze, Rosa's smirk, Ghislaine's wild hair, the herbalist's hard mouth, the girl in the woods. The boy with no name from the chapel steps, even the madam, sharp-eyed, greedy, tired, and him, the cloaked man. You draw them into the mural. Henri watches in silence, not in awe, not with questions, just with the patience of someone who knows the story will come when it's ready. You speak slowly. They all vanished. He doesn't interrupt. They were tired in ways I didn't understand until I was too far down the road to pretend anymore. Did they die? He asks. You shake your head. Worse. He waits. They were erased. He breathes in deep. By him? Not just him, you say. By the city, by time, by what people are willing to forget when it's easier than caring. You trace the outline of Elise's braid on the wall. I was next. I felt it. Henri nods. But you didn't vanish, he says. I was already half gone. I just turned around. He lets that hang in the air. Then, softly, is he still following you? You pause. No, you say. He's in me, in all of us. In every choice we don't make, every time we say nothing, every time we don't scream when someone closes the door behind them, and we're too polite to say no. Henri closes his eyes. I don't want to be that person, he says. You're not, you reply, not yet. He brings you food, warm bread, cheese, dried pears. You eat slowly, you savour it. The next week is quiet. You paint. You teach Henri how to mix glazes. You sweep. You hum. The mural grows. A village, a fire, a river, a chapel. Each piece pulled from your story, not literal, but true. The woman in the centre grows taller, her eyes open. She begins to look like you, not you, then you, now. One morning, you find a coin by your bed, but not his. This one is flat, handmade, clay pressed with the shape of a star, a child's trinket probably. But it feels like something new, a beginning. You wear it around your neck on a bit of twine. When people come to the workshop, they ask about the mural. Henri lets you tell it. It's a map, you say. To where? To the parts of yourself you thought you had to bury to stay alive. They don't always understand. That's fine. They remember the mural, though. They talk about the woman with her arms raised, the look on her face. You know what they're seeing. A survivor who chose not to disappear. A woman who answered the knock not with surrender, but with fire. Eventually Henri finishes a commission for a nearby church, and the coin purse they give him is heavy. He gives you half. You earned this. I don't want payment, you say. It's not payment, he replies. It's your share. You stay 2 more months. Then you tell him it's time. To leave? You nod. Where? You shrug. Somewhere new, somewhere that needs remembering. He packs a satchel. I'm coming. You blink. What? I don't want to paint ghosts anymore. You smile. You know it won't be easy. I don't want easy, he says. I want real. So the two of you go, on foot, no map. Just your names, your stories, and a mural drying behind you. You hear the knock again days later, but it's distant. Soft, not on your door. Someone else's. You say a prayer for them, then you keep walking. Historical fact. Mural art during the late medieval period often served as both decoration and storytelling, especially in places where literacy was rare, allowing the stories of marginalised people to be preserved through visual symbolism. Fringe fact, in certain folk practices, travellers would carry handmade talismans or tokens, coins pressed with personalised symbols, to anchor their identity and ward off spiritual erosion while on the road. Scholarly debate. Historians continue to debate whether the work of forgotten medieval women, through art, song or memory, was actively erased or simply lost to systems that never saw them as worth recording in the first place. The road unwinds ahead of you like a story still being told, dirt and stone and puddles that reflect a sky heavy with silver light. You and Henri travel at a pace that has nothing to do with haste. Some days you cover miles, others you don't move at all, just find a flat patch of land, light a small fire and talk or paint or sit in silence. You both carry notebooks now, though his is full of sketches and half-finished faces, and yours is filled with names. Not just the ones you remember, but new ones too. People you meet, places you pass, little things, like the name of the goat in the last village, or the old man who sold you apples and told you a joke so dry it took you a full minute to realise it was meant to be funny. You don't talk much about the brothel anymore, or the coin, or the man in the cloak who whispered promises so carefully wrapped in the shape of mercy. Not because you've forgotten, but because memory, once spoken enough times, begins to turn into armour. You've worn it long enough now that it holds its shape even when you're not thinking about it. Henri asks questions sometimes. Not the pointed kind, not the kind that demand confessions, just small ones. What was the first thing you remember being afraid of? What colour was the sky the day you left home? Do you think ghosts know they're ghosts? You answer what you can. When you can't, he just nods, like the silence is an answer too. One evening, you make camp beneath a line of cypress trees. You build the fire and he sets out a flat stone to sketch on. The stars begin to show themselves overhead, timidly at first, then all at once, and you lie back on the grass, arms behind your head. I had a dream last night, you say. Henri doesn't look up. Yeah? I was standing in a room made of glass. No walls, no ceiling, just reflections. And I could see all the versions of me I've been, some crying, some working, some running. But they weren't looking at each other. They were all watching me. He pauses his sketching. What did you do? I turned around. Were they still there? You smile faintly. No, just me. Older, stronger, holding a mirror. Henri hums. Sounds like a good dream. It was. He looks over at you. You think he's still following us? You know who he means. You exhale. No, I think he's waiting. For what? For someone else to get tired. The fire pops, a single ember rises and vanishes. You say, he's not what scared me the most. Henri looks over again, curious. You continue. It wasn't him. It was how easy it was to say yes, how natural it felt to slip under and call it rest. Henri nods slowly. Yeah, that's the real trick, isn't it? You both sit in the quiet after that, watching the stars shift. The wind picks up, smelling faintly of damp wood and some kind of herb. Lavender, maybe. You wrap your cloak tighter. In the morning you reach a town that wasn't on your map. If it even has a name, no one says it aloud. But the people are kind. They offer rooms in exchange for stories. You stay for 3 nights, painting a mural on the side of the tavern. It's not yours, not entirely. Henri helps, but you shape the bones of it. A woman seated on a throne of tree roots holding out an open hand. In her palm, a house, a flame, a mirror. Who is she? A boy asks as you pack up your brushes. Someone who remembered she belonged to herself. The boy tilts his head, not understanding. That's fine. You leave the town the next morning, heading northeast toward the coast. Henri wants to see the sea again, and you want to know if it still makes you feel small in a way that's comforting instead of terrifying. You pass more markers, stone cairns, boundary walls, ditches full of water too clear to be clean. You begin to notice how many places are marked with strange little carvings, spirals, stars, flowers. Protective signs, maybe, warnings. One afternoon, you find a woman outside a chapel hammering a small medallion into the doorframe. You ask what it's for. To keep him out, she says. Your blood goes still. Does it work? She shrugs. Sometimes. Depends on how tired you are. You exchange glances with Henri. Neither of you says anything until you're far down the road. You don't ask who he is. You already know. That night, you don't sleep much. You sit by the fire, turning the clay coin around your fingers. When the knock comes, it does. Softly, from somewhere that's not the door or the trees or the world you're in, you answer again. Not with fear, not with surrender. You say a name. Not yours. Elise. You feel the knock hesitate. You say another. Rosa. The knock quiets. You say them all, and then you say your own, and the night goes still. Henri stirs in his bedroll but doesn't wake. You lie back and stare at the stars. You realise something then. He wasn't after your life. He was after your forgetting. And you've remembered too much. The next day you write a letter. You give it to a merchant headed west. He promises to take it to a chapel near Saint-Remy. Inside is a list of names. No explanations, just names. You hope someone writes them down, etches them into stone, or into memory. That's enough. You walk on, you cross a bridge and never look back. The sea waits just beyond the next bend, and you walk like someone who remembers who she is. Historical fact, oral storytelling, especially through murals and songs, was one of the few ways the stories of marginalised women survived in medieval Europe, passed on in fragments, preserved in local tradition when no written record remained. Fringe fact. In certain folk legends, a spirit that is named repeatedly loses its power, trapped by the act of being remembered, because forgetting is what lets it spread. Scholarly debate. Some scholars argue that the mythos around naming evil or traumatic forces stems from ancient ritual traditions, while others view it as a metaphor for confronting buried grief or injustice in communities with limited legal recourse. The sea hits you like a memory you forgot you missed. The smell reaches you first, salt and brine, like metal and old bones, and something green that reminds you of long-lost summers and grass between your toes. Then comes the sound, a deep, endless hush that rises and falls like breath, like time itself exhaling. You stand on the cliff above the coast for a long while, cloak pulled close, watching the waves heave and collapse, not because you're cold, but because the view unravels something in you, a thread you didn't know was still pulled taut. Henry stands beside you, silent, eyes wide. He's never seen the sea like this before. You can tell. There's a kind of reverence in the way he holds himself, like he's looking at a god he doesn't want to offend. Below, there's a town, grey and wind-battered, roofs sloped like hunched shoulders, nets drying in the sun, gulls circling like nosy old men. The kind of place where people are born and buried within the same quarter mile, where news from the outside comes folded in cloth or whispered at the docks. You descend the cliffside path slowly, boots slipping once on the damp stones. Henri catches your arm but says nothing. You don't thank him. He doesn't expect it. That's the comfort between you now. Less words, more knowing. The town is called Belmer, and it doesn't ask who you are. You rent a room above a salt shop, its floor permanently sticky with ocean air and pickling vinegar. The woman who owns it doesn't bother with names. She gives you a key, some candles, a small loaf of bread, and a shrug. You sleep the first night like the dead. No dreams, no knocks. Just the sound of waves pulling at the edge of the earth. You wake to light bleeding through the wooden shutters and Henri scribbling on parchment, face smudged with charcoal, hair sticking up in every direction. He hands you a mug of something warm and bitter. You don't ask what it is. The two of you find work fast. He paints signs for shops and portraits for the vain and grieving, and you help repair nets down by the docks, your hands raw but your mind clear. The sea has a way of burning off the fog inside. Or maybe it just leaves less room for ghosts. At night, you walk the shoreline. You speak names again. Not because you're afraid, but because they deserve to be said. One night, a girl no older than 16 approaches you, barefoot, holding a basket of fish with one hand and a dagger in the other. "You're the woman who talks to the waves," she says. You raise an eyebrow. "Am I?" "That's what they say." "Who's they?" She shrugs. "People who've seen the signs." You hesitate. "What signs?" The girl reaches into her pocket and pulls out a familiar token. A coin. Flat, handmade. Clay. Pressed with a symbol you once drew into ashen water and wind. A star. She holds it out. "You dropped this. A long way from here." You take it slowly. "No, I gave that one away." "To who?" You smile softly. "Someone who remembered." The girl grins, all teeth and salt. "Can you teach me?" You don't ask what. You nod. The next day, she brings 2 more. The next week, it's 10. You begin to hold quiet gatherings on the rocks beyond town. Simple circles, no fire, just memory and voice. You teach them how to listen, how to speak names like incantations, how to write their own symbols in sand and let the sea carry them away. Some are orphans, some are runaways, some are just tired. You teach them not to disappear. One night, while sketching new symbols in the margins of your notebook, Henri asks you, "Do you think he's still out there?" You don't have to ask who. You nod. "He's always out there." Henri watches the flame of the lantern dance. "Waiting?" "No," you say. "Looking. For the next one who thinks surrender is safer than screaming." Henri leans back against the doorframe. "And if they don't know how to scream?" "Then we teach them," he smiles. "You're becoming something of a legend." "Not a legend," you say. "A reminder." That night you sit by the tide alone. You whisper all the names again. They no longer feel like weights. They feel like seeds. You let the water touch your fingertips. It's cold and sharp and grounding. A shadow stirs beside you. You don't startle. You don't turn. You just say, "You're not welcome here." The shadow hesitates, then disappears. Not in smoke, not in fury, just gone. Like a thought you no longer choose to carry. You light a candle in the sand. You place the cracked mirror beside it. The sea does not rise. The night does not fall. Everything simply holds. You stay there until the moon reaches its highest point. Then you pick up the mirror. The crack is still there, but it's smaller now, barely a fracture. You walk back up the beach. Behind you, the waves whisper, but they don't knock. They never knock again. Historical fact. In several coastal European regions, women led spiritual gatherings outside of the formal church system, especially among fishing communities where traditional clergy were scarce, blending ritual, remembrance, and storytelling. Fringe fact. Folklore tells of sea witches who carried mirrors that held not reflections but memories, and who could bind spirits by speaking the names of the forgotten under moonlight. Scholarly debate. Some scholars argue that the rise of female-led oral memory circles in isolated towns served not only as spiritual practice, but as covert resistance against systems of patriarchal control, preserving trauma narratives through generations. Some stories end with a door slamming shut, others with a sword raised or a kiss stolen beneath an oak tree, but yours ends like this, with a quiet morning, the sound of gulls overhead, and bread baking downstairs. You wake not because something calls to you, but because your body decides it's ready to rise. For once, there's no shadow clinging to your dreams, no weight behind your ribs. Henri's already gone down to fetch water. You hear the bucket creak and the splash into the cistern. He'll come back soon, hands damp, hair damp, offering you a peach or a crust of bread as though it's a gift from the gods. You stretch, slow and deliberate, and pull your cloak from the peg by the window. It doesn't smell like fear anymore. It smells like salt and lavender, maybe even ink. You wear it differently now, not as a shield, but as a second skin. The room around you is full of little signs that you stayed. A pressed violet between 2 pages of a book, a handful of charcoal pencils, a bowl of smooth pebbles, each with a name scratched into it, a piece of string wound into the shape of a spiral. This is what remembering looks like. Downstairs, a knock. You don't flinch. It's not that knock. You know it the way sailors know the difference between waves and something rising from the deep. You open the door. It's the girl with salt in her hair and fire in her teeth. She's holding a stack of papers, carefully bundled. They're writing them down now, she says. The names. You take the bundle gently, fingers brushing hers. Good, you say. Don't stop. Behind her, the others wait. Young, old, tired, brave. You were never meant to be a saviour. Just a witness. Just someone who said no and didn't vanish after. You nod. Let's begin. The house on the cliff never locks its door. People come, they learn, they paint, they sing, they whisper names into the sea and listen for echoes. Sometimes they ask about you. Henri tells them. She remembered who she was. That's it. That's the story. You still walk the shore some nights, not because you're watching for him, but because you want to be the first to hear the new names, the ones still fighting, the ones not forgotten. You take their names and you add them to the others, on coins, on mirrors, on painted walls and seashells. Memory doesn't vanish if you hold it gently. It becomes a lighthouse, and the tide, no matter how hungry, can't swallow that. So, now the fire's burning low, the story's been told, and you're still here. Whole, cracked, beautiful. You made it. You probably shouldn't have, but you did. So rest now. You've earned that. You're not alone. Not anymore. Sweet dreams.